Good evening. I'll call this meeting of the Housing Authority for the City of Salem for Monday, April 11th, 2022 to order. If the recorder will please call the roll.
Vice Chair Stapleton.
Here.
Commissioner Anderson.
Here.
Commissioner Phillips.
Here.
Commissioner Leung. Absent. Commissioner Gonzalez.
Here.
Commissioner Nordyke. Commissioner Varney.
Here.
Chair Hoy.
Here. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Vice Chair Stapleton, do we have any additions or deletions to the agenda?
We do not.
All right, and I see we have nobody signed up for public comment. Vice Chair Stapleton, the consent calendar, please.
Sorry, I had some motorcycles racing by here. Yes, I move approval of the consent calendar.
Second.
Thank you. All right, the consent calendar consists of a few things tonight. We have our March 28th, 2022 draft Salem Housing Authority minutes. Item 3.3A, which is the disposition and development of 3112-3120 Broadway Avenue Northeast for affordable housing. And we also have item 3.3B, which is the authorization, submittal of an application and acceptance for funding, if awarded, for up to $1.5 million through the City of Salem Home ARPA Investment Partnership Program to develop the Sequoia Crossings Affordable Housing Project. And that concludes our consent calendar.
Thank you. In terms of comment, I would just like to say I am so excited about these two agenda items because Sequoia Crossing is going to be permanent supportive housing for families. It'll be our third such development in the city in terms of permanent supportive housing, and it's just a really critical link in our efforts to address homelessness long-term and to end homelessness. So thank you, Ms. Utes, to you and your staff for bringing this project forward. I look forward to it closing. Are there any other comments or questions? All right, if the recorder will please call the roll.
Commissioner Anderson.
Aye.
Commissioner Phillips.
Aye.
Commissioner Leung. Absent. Commissioner Gonzalez.
Aye.
Commissioner Nordyke. Absent. Commissioner Varney.
Aye.
Vice Chair Stapleton.
Aye.
Chair Hoy.
Aye, motion passes. We have no public hearings. We have no special orders of business. We have no information reports tonight because we disposed of them at our last meeting. And therefore, the Housing Authority for the City of Salem is adjourned. Mr. Mayor, you're on mute.
There we go. I'm going to call this meeting of the City of Salem, excuse me, Urban Renewal Agency to order for Monday, April 11th. If the recorder, please call a roll.
Board Member Stapleton.
Here.
Board Member Anderson.
Present.
Board Member Phillips.
Here.
Board Member Leung.
Here.
Board Member Gonzalez.
Here.
Board Member Hoy.
Here.
Board Member Nordyke. Board Member Varney.
Here.
Chair Bennett.
Here. Okay. Any additions or deletions, Councilor Hoy?
No.
Okay. I have no public comment. Go to the consent calendar.
I move approval of the consent calendar.
Second.
I'm sorry. I move approval of the consent calendar with the exception of item 3.3A.
Good.
That's what I meant to say.
Do you need another second?
No, that's fine. We'll figure you'll do it again.
I apologize. That leaves us with item 3.1A, the March 28, 2022 draft Urban Renewal Agency minutes. I'm sorry, that is the remainder. That is it. That's it on the consent calendar.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, if the recorder, please call a roll.
And also, that was pulled by Board Member Anderson, is that right?
Yeah,
Correct.
3.3A.
Thank you. Board Member Anderson,
Aye.
Board Member Phillips,
Aye.
Board Member Leon,
Aye.
Board Member Gonzalez.
Aye.
Board Member Hoy,
Aye.
Board Member Nordyke is absent. Board Member Varney,
Aye.
Board Member Stapleton,
Aye.
Chair Bennett.
Aye. Okay, motion passes. We'll go then to 3.3A under special orders of business, since we have no public hearings. Councilor Anderson, do you have a motion?
Yes, I move that we allocate $24,000 in uncommitted 2021 WSUR funds and contract with the ULT to engage the technical assistant panel. I don't know why we don't call that the TAP. In redevelopment planning, it focuses on the West District of the West Salem Urban Renewal Association,
Second.
or area, I think.
Okay, second by Stapleton. Go ahead, Tom. You want to speak?
Thank you. This is a very exciting matter for a number of reasons. One of them is that one of our goals is to have higher density mixed use housing in the downtown core, and that's what this will do. It also will be helpful in our climate action plans that we're moving forward on, and that is make development more dense. And then it also dovetails quite nicely with something that I have been speaking about for a long time to council publicly and also individually, the Salem streetcar system, which we're hoping to come to the council through the transit district to suggest a streetcar system that would start in this very spot and eventually go all the way to the freeway with spurs going off to various areas. I've spoken to individual councilors and to the staff, and also Councilor Stapleton has been involved in a few of the several meetings we've had, and we're looking forward to including the discussion of what potentially could happen with the Salem streetcar system in this discussion of the redevelopment of West Salem Urban Renewal District. I might also add that Steve Anderson has been very involved in the West Salem neighborhood as one of the members of the steering committee. So he's aware of it. We've also met with people in West Salem business area who live in that or work in that area too. So I think this is a terrific project, and I look forward to good things coming from this expenditure of funds we're making.
So, Councilor, then you see this Land Institute including this as part of their study recommendation?
Yeah, I do. And we're just, we're waiting for the, we've got people, Ian Davidson of the Transit District, the chair of the board, and we've been speaking with Mr. Polk, and there will be some proposal coming from the Transit District, since they are the organization that is knowledgeable about moving groups of people around. And so one of the things we look at is saying, okay, we could end up with some high density mixed use apartment buildings in this very area. And wouldn't it be nice for somebody who works at the hospital or the university or the state office campus to be able to step out of their high rise and walk 50 yards and pick up a streetcar that'll take them almost directly to where they live. So I think this, or where they work, I think this is something that dovetails very nicely with it. And I've also spoken with Mr. Wright, the interim director, and also with Ms. Rutherford, and also the people higher up in the planning department. So everybody in the city knows about this, and this would be a good thing to kind of weave into it.
All right. Councilor Stapleton.
Yeah, I'll just add real quickly that I'm really excited about this project. I've already reached out to city staff and asked how I can be involved to be a part of this committee to see if we can get all the business partners and everybody from town who's going to be involved in this connected and talking together and really planning for a great future in this area. So I'm really excited for this to move forward and pleased to see it on the agenda today.
Great. Okay, anyone else? Excellent. Well, I can tell you, this is a thing that we've been looking at for 15 years. So I'm really pleased. It sounds like a great deal of work has been accomplished on this. So I think we'll see this move forward. It sounds quite good. Okay. Well, I'm going to ask the recorder to call the roll. I don't see anyone else wanting to speak.
Board Member Phillips.
Aye.
Board Member Leung.
Aye.
Board Member Gonzalez.
Aye.
Board Member Hoy.
Aye.
Board Member Nordyke.
Aye.
Board Member Varney.
Aye.
Board Member Stapleton.
Aye.
Board Member Anderson.
Aye.
Chair Bennett.
Aye. Okay, very good. That motion passes. I don't see any further business. So I'm going to adjourn the Urban Renewal Agency and call the Salem City Council meeting to order. If the recorder, please call the roll.
Councilor Stapleton.
Here.
Councilor Anderson.
Present.
Councilor Phillips.
Here.
Councilor Leung.
Here.
Councilor Gonzalez.
Here.
Councilor Hoy.
Here.
Councilor Nordyke.
Here.
Councilor Varney.
Here.
Mayor Bennett.
Here. All right, any additions, Councilor Hoy?
Yes, we have a deletion.
A deletion, okay, that's correct.
I move additions or deletions to the agenda.
Okay,
Item 3.3C has been removed from the agenda.
okay, very good. Okay. Got a second?
I'll second.
Okay, thank you. Stapleton seconds. Any discussion? Okay, the recorder, please call a roll.
Councilor Phillips.
Aye.
Councilor Leung.
Aye.
Councilor Gonzalez.
Aye.
Councilor Hoy.
Aye.
Councilor Nordyke. Councilor Nordyke.
Aye.
Councilor Varney.
Aye.
Councilor Stapleton.
Aye.
Councilor Anderson.
Aye.
Mayor Bennett.
Aye, okay, motion passes. We'll move on then to council and city manager comment. Anyone have any comments they want to share? Councilor Anderson?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have two comments today, and they're both on items on the agenda. The first one is on the consent calendar. The first one is the declaration by the city of Juneteenth as a city holiday. I think that's terrific, and I think it really fits within what we have been trying to do as a council, to look at everything through a diversity, equity, and inclusion lens. I've been to a number of the Juneteenth celebrations down at the Riverfront Park, and they're always a very enjoyable, wonderful event. And so I'm proud of our city that we are now making this a city holiday. That's number one. Number two, also on the consent agenda is item number 3.2A, which is a transfer of $200,000 from contingency fund to begin work on the climate action plan. I think that's another terrific thing. We've been working on this, my gosh, maybe 2 years now since since my motion to establish the Climate Action Task Force, and the task force consisting of broad segments of the community worked very hard and reached some good conclusions and made some terrific recommendations, some of which are going to be relatively easy to carry out. Some are going to be a little harder, but all of them need to be considered in light of the crisis, climate crisis we are facing, which has only been recognized as being worse in the past few weeks by the UN and by other agencies. So I'm terrifically pleased that the administration is using $200,000 of this money to get the climate action plan recommendations at least started to move.
Okay. Any other comments? Yes, Councilor Phillips.
Thank you, Mayor Bennett. I just wanted to take some time to talk about events I've done in the last week and a half with some of my fellow councilors. First, at the beginning of the month, we had the parade in our community, Paint the Town Blue to Prevent Child Abuse parade. and it was attended by Councilor Chris Hoy, Councilor Nordyke, and many others, as well as now Councilor Mickey Varney. So it was a great event to bring more awareness to that important issue. It was very well attended by many organizations and law enforcement in our community. Additionally, I had the opportunity to tour the area that is staffed by High Impact Technology and Adomo Homes with Councilor Hoy and Councilor Varney. We got to see where they're fabricating those micro shelters in our community with using local jobs. It's really quite impressive when you talk to the leader of one of the leaders in High Impact Technology, Russ Monk, at the effort of scaling that up and making those 120 or 150 local micro shelters that have been donated by community members throughout the region. That was a very educational and encouraging experience. And then finally, a little bit more specific to Ward 3, the Fayrite Neighborhood Association is doing park walks in the Fayrite Neighborhood Association once a month. And this month we met at Hillview Park in Ward 3. And Councilor Nordyke was there, as was City Council President Chris Hoy, and many of the residents in the surrounding area. It's quite a beautiful park, and I think we've got approval for some grant funds to fix some of the dangerous walkway. We did a community inventory of that park, and we were joined by the local folk hero, Caesar the No Drama Llama, who's the star of a child book. So it was quite the event. It's a draw when you have a famous llama that people recognize far more than myself or the other counselors. But it was fun. The weather was great, and it's really a community resource to see these parks in use. So those were some good events that we got to participate in.
Great. Anyone else? Councilor Stapleton?
Thank you so much. Yeah, I just want to, I guess, double down on what Councilor Anderson said about the Juneteenth celebration, paid holiday, and the climate action funding that we're taking care of on the consent calendar day. It's really great to see movement in both of those areas. Today, I wanted to talk about a group here in Salem that is nationally recognized for the way that they run things, and that is Salem for Refugees. This is a really great local nonprofit who's doing a lot of really good work. And so I connected with them this last week and asked them kind of what their current stats are and how things are going for them. The reason this kind of came up is that I ran into a friend of mine who lives here in Ward 1, and she said with great excitement that they had a refugee family from Ukraine moving into their street, across the street from her. And I was really excited about that. Sad that it needs to happen, but glad that Salem can be a part of the solution, or at least the help in time of need. And so I know this is an important topic for our community members, so I wanted to bring this forward. The current stats that we have for Salem for Refugees is over the past 5 years, in Salem and Kaiser, over 500 volunteers, 50 community partners, and 35 faith communities have welcomed over 475 refugees from 14 different countries. These include countries like Iraq, Iran, Afghanistan, Pakistan, Syria, and on and on. Let's see here, the Democratic Republic of Congo, the Ivory Coast. I'm just grabbing them as I go down. Of course, Ukraine, Venezuela, Honduras, and all together speaking 20 different languages. So really an impressive amount of folks coming from all over the world. They said the few things that they need help with, as always, is staying up to date. You can join the Salem for Refugees email list. They send you one, I think it's every 2 weeks or so, once a month maybe, just to let you know how you can get involved. I love seeing the emails come through saying we have a family coming and we need a welcoming party at the airport. Those are just always are inspiring for me. And let's see here, we have attending their monthly meeting, or volunteering as a good neighbor team or a resource team or even a host home, and then donating funds or grocery cards, restart kits and household items. And of course, you can always find out more information at salemforrefugees.org. And I did ask them specifically about Ukraine and folks that are coming from there. And right now it's still very just kind of one-offs, one family here or there. They usually have connections here in town. And right now the Slavic community, church community, is really wrapping their arms around them and welcoming everybody and doing their best to help everybody get settled in. But it will get more formal as time goes on and the federal government steps in and helps with that. So a lot of good news out there in the world. I've been trying to focus in on that a little bit, and I hope that comes through tonight with a little bit of good news from our local community. So thanks so much.
Thank you. Councilor Hoy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to kind of jump on a couple of the items a couple of my colleagues mentioned. Thank you to Interim City Manager Kristen Rutherford for bringing the Juneteenth holiday forward. I think our voices were heard, and I am so glad that that's happening. That's really an important holiday, and I appreciate that you're bringing that forward. Also, I had the opportunity to hear from folks from the Salem for Refugees recently at the Lansing Neighborhood Association, and invited a representative to come down and talk to council, and so we could all hear and sort of amplify that message. And so I'm hoping they'll be down in the very near future, because that's such an important program. And Councilor Stapleton is right. Salem is actually really leading on this effort, so I'm very proud of that. And so I just thought you mentioned that we might be hearing a presentation from them in the very near future.
Great. Okay, anyone else? Councilor Nordyke.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, one and all. Vanessa Nordyke, Ward 7. A few points I'd like to share this evening. First of all, I want to thank everyone who has signed up and taken time away from their busy schedules to provide live or written testimony about my motion for crisis units here in Salem. I firmly believe that every city needs police, fire, and mental health responders to serve all of our public safety needs. And this motion is about moving the ball forward. Mobile crisis units save lives and save money. They divert folks from costly trips to our city's emergency room. They free up our police officers and our firefighters for higher acuity calls. They build rapport with folks who are traumatized and who want and can benefit from our help. So I look forward to discussion of this motion. Next, let's talk a little bit more about Child Abuse Prevention Month. I've spoken before about how important this month is to me, because for years I have handled child abuse cases at the Oregon Department of Justice. So I joined a number of community partners, CASA, Liberty House, Salem Family YMCA, now Dick With Now YMCA, soon to be, Marion County Sheriff's Office, Salem Police Department, and many others as part of our Paint the Town Blue event, where we all paraded in a giant car caravan down to the Capitol. With me in my car was Danae Medlock, Stacy Vieira Brendel, and Mickey Varney. And I shared online on my Facebook page, Salem City Councilor Vanessa Nordyke, the personal connection that all of us women have to this topic. We all can do our part to prevent child abuse. So I encourage everyone to take the free training on child abuse prevention that is put on by our community partner, Liberty House. It's a fantastic training. I've done one of these trainings. I know Councilor Stapleton has, because we were in the same training course, and perhaps others on council have as well. But it's never too late to get invested in our child safety. Next, on a more somber note, I attended the memorial service for the 4 unsheltered men and women who lost their lives to a drunk driver. I can tell you the outpouring of support is sorely needed for these folks. We had prayer, we had remembrance, we had stories shared, we passed out flowers and as part of this memorial service, and it was absolutely heartbreaking. And I just want to remind folks that in order to end homelessness, we really need to start with the data and not the stigma. It didn't take long for news of this tragedy to turn into something in which people were commenting online saying, well, they were probably drug users anyway. Victim blaming was pretty rampant. And it is so heartbreaking to go to a memorial service for these individuals and contrast that with the comments that you hear about people without shelter online. And I want to remind folks that according to our local homeless alliance, the Mid-Willamette Valley Homeless Alliance, which is a nonpartisan group, which consists of representatives from several cities and the counties, people coming together from across the political aisle. They have put out a great deal of data and information and strategic planning around homelessness. And one of those data points that I've shared on my own social media channels is that, contrary to what some might think, a majority of people experiencing homelessness are not drug addicted. It's only 20 to 40%. And so, yes, is drug addiction a challenge amongst our unsheltered community? It certainly is. But I think we should avoid the stigmas and look at where the data actually shows what our needs are in this community. Not to mention the mental health crises that unfold all the time, many behind closed doors. Last but not least, I hope that folks who are watching the meeting tonight take the opportunity to take a look at the Center 50 Plus Advisory Commission annual report. The Center 50 Plus is kind of amazing. They do a lot of great work, and you really need to check out the report to understand just the sheer capacity of what they do. They had over 1,870 volunteer hours. They reached over 2,600 residents. They delivered 297 friendship boxes. And they also called folks. Even today, we have a lot of seniors who live alone, who live in isolation, who have limited needs and limited abilities. And so each of us can and should reach out to the seniors in your community, the folks living down your street. Because remember, if and when we have a blackout, an ice storm, a heat wave, those are the folks who will need our help collectively as a community. And I don't know if you've ever volunteered for Meals on Wheels. I've done so a number of times. It's one of the most heartwarming things I've ever done. When you show up to someone's doorstep with fresh food and meals that are ready to go, and you can see the smiles on people's faces. So I want to commend all of the staff and the volunteers that make Center 50 Plus the amazing institution that it is. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Leung.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I really appreciate all the other councilors in terms of what you shared so far, so I'm not going to be repeating any of those things. One thing I also wanted to mention, like especially as we talk about like awareness months or awareness activities, as in addition to April being Child Abuse Awareness Month, April is also Sexual Assault Awareness Month. And so there is an upcoming event that's coming up actually next Thursday, April 21st, with the Center of Hope and Safety, which it's going to be the update on the progress of their Hope Plaza, which I'm really excited about. It's going to be at 10 a.m. And it looks like it's just going to be visiting the lot before the construction begins and learning about the plaza project. I invite folks who are able to attend to go there. It's at 605 Center Street Northeast in Salem. There is limited seating available and also to plan on street parking. And the email to contact would be info@hopeandsafety.org for more information. The other thing I also wanted to highlight briefly was this past week was National Public Health Week, and it's a national event that takes place that covers every single day a specific daily theme. So last Monday, the focus was on racism as a public health crisis, and folks may recall earlier this year we actually had passed a declaration declaring racism as a public health crisis within our city. Second, on Tuesday was the public health workforce essential to our future. Wednesday centered on community with collaboration and recognizing our resilience and strengths. Thursday was recognizing World Health Day, health as a human right. And folks may remember when Councilor Phillips had requested passing a resolution declaring healthcare as a human right. And that's something else that we all did together this year, which I'm, again, really proud of us for. And then Friday was accessibility, closing the health equity gap, focusing on our disabled community, as well as, the issues that people have. And then on Saturday, it was on climate change, taking action for equity. And people could see in today's agenda, we'll be talking about that a little bit more. Then this past Sunday was mental wellness, redefining the meaning of health with the focus on mental health. And again, because we're talking quite a bit about cahoots and a few other things relating to mental health, that's also another important reason why to bring it up. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Any other councilors? Okay, I'm going to mention just a couple of things I had the honor to participate in. On April 2nd was our 4th annual Qingming celebration. This is a celebration at Pioneer Cemetery at the altar that was set up there years and years and years ago, and then found again by our archaeologist, Kimberly Fitzgerald, and really has been revived. We had probably 50 to 75 Chinese Americans from here in Salem, as well as from Portland. This has become kind of a regional event here. It was really a lovely event. We had a beautiful day down at the cemetery. I want to thank Councilor Stapleton for highlighting the refugee program. I've been working with those folks since they started, and we meet quarterly, and their updates are inspiring every time. This has been one of the really amazing and often unsung programs. So thank you very much. And I join the other councilors in thanking the manager for getting Juneteenth as one of our regular paid holidays. I think it's high time that was taken care of. Manager Rutherford.
Thank you, Mayor. Just 3 quick items. First, I appreciate all of your thanks regarding Juneteenth. And while I fully support the importance of this as a holiday, I want to put credit where credit is due. And that rests with our Enterprise Services Director, Krishna Namburi. This was a passion project for her that she and her human resources teams did all of the research, and they're the ones that really worked hard to bring this forward. So I just wanted to make sure Council was aware that this is due to Krishna and her team. Secondly, just to remind everybody that on April 18th, we have a work session, a joint work session with our other taxing district partners, with Salem Kaiser School Board, our Marion County commissioners, I think at least one of our Polk County commissioners, and the transit district, to talk about Salem's housing needs. We are having panelists, I think 5 different panelists that will speak about different aspects of the housing supply chain, affordable housing, market rate housing, mixed level, mixed income housing, and what we need to start changing the dynamic here locally, and why we have the challenges that we have. And then lastly, a good news item, Jory Apartments. This is a development out on the North Campus. We created a single property urban renewal area there to incentivize mixed income housing there and getting some affordable units in that development. They have started lease up. I learned that today. So it's very exciting, and we'll look forward to that being fully occupied and really kind of changing the capacity that we have in the community here with more housing and more affordable housing.
Right. There's apartments as well as lots for sale. It's really quite a bit of activity. I drove by there today. It's a going concern out there. It's very good. Okay, we'll move along then. Proclamations. I have one proclamation. Whereas emergencies can occur at any time that require police, fire, or emergency medical services, and whereas when an emergency occurs, the prompt response of police officers, firefighters, and paramedics is critical to the protection of life and preservation of property. And whereas the safety of our police officers and firefighters is dependent on the quality and accuracy of information obtained from residents who telephone the Willamette Valley Communications Center, and whereas public safety telecommunicators are the first and most critical contact our residents have with emergency services, and whereas public safety telecommunicators are the single vital link for our police officers and firefighters by monitoring their activities by radio and providing them information and ensuring their safety. And whereas public safety telecommunicators of the Willamette Valley Communications Center have contributed substantially to the apprehension of criminals, suppression of fires, and treatment of patients. And whereas each dispatcher has exhibited compassion, understanding, and professionalism during the performance of their job Now, therefore, I, Chuck Bennett, Mayor of the City of Salem, do hereby proclaim April 10 to 16 as National Public Safety Telecommunications Week in honor of the employees of the Willamette Valley Communications Center, whose diligence and professionalism keep our citizens and residents safe. Dated this 11th day of April. And I've got Scott Lavelle, Interim Deputy Chief of the Salem Fire Department, who oversees the Communications Division, and Dave Catton, Communications Specialist from the Willamette Valley Communications Center here to receive the proclamation. Wanted to give him a chance to speak up. So where we got? Scott, do you want to go first?
Yes, sir. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, council members, and to everyone that played a role in making this proclamation a reality. I can personally tell y'all from firsthand experience, our WVCC telecommunicators are dedicated and committed to ensuring not only that citizens located within Marion, Polk, and Lincoln counties, but all Oregonians, you know, they are the first to answer the call and usually the last to get recognized. So this is a huge honor. Our telecommunicators work long hours under incredibly stressful conditions, dealing with all types of situations, and our lifelines for our citizens, police, fire, and EMS agencies. So on behalf of their Salem Fire Department family and WVCC administration, we would also like to say thank you to everyone at WVCC for providing this essential service in such a professional manner with smiles on their face. So thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Chief. And Mr. Catton, did you want to?
Yeah, thank you for having us. And it's very much appreciated having the recognition, being the beginning of the emergency services chain. We're that first link. And we do work awfully hard, and it does get awfully stressful. But it's very much appreciated being recognized. Thank you.
Well, we tremendously appreciate you. Chief, did you have anything you wanted to say? This is your department.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to say I'm incredibly proud of the folks over there. They really do an amazing job day in and day out, 365 days a year, 24 hours a day, dispatching 29 agencies in Oregon. So it's a busy center, second busiest center in the state. Very, very complex organization, but we are just very proud of them and wanted to make sure that they get the recognition that they deserve.
Well, thank you, Chief. We're very proud of them and really appreciative. I think any of us who've relied on them to get help to us when we're in need of medical or police services just can't thank you all enough for the tremendous work you do along in cooperation with the frontline services that show up at the door. So I'm glad we had a chance to recognize you. So thank you very much for coming out this evening. Really appreciate it. Okay. Okay, we're going to go to public comment. Judge Johnson, are you here?
Yes, I am, Mayor.
Why don't you go first, Judge? You're the judge.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much. How's everybody doing? Judge Johnson, I'm really thankful to be here. I appreciate seeing everybody. Newly minted, appointed February 2nd, sworn in February 14th, Oregon's birthday. Took the bench March 1st, already had a trial, some dissolutions, some sentencing, some motions, a little bit of everything. So I just wanted to introduce myself, give a face to the process. You know, like I try to tell everybody, you know, my mission to access to justice is to let people see I'm a human, you know, just like you. I have the same wants, needs, desires, you know, connected to the community, want to see things do better, and invite you, you know, come on down, watch me do my job. It's an open public place. You can sit and watch me. One of the few public figures or, you know, public servants that'll let you come in and sit and watch them do your job. So Thank you very much for having me. I'll take any questions. I may have a couple of seconds left.
Oh, well, Anderson's a lawyer, so he's got a question for you.
Thank you, Judge Johnson. I've known you over the years, and I'm extremely happy to see you on the circuit court. I also will say, as a matter of personal pride, my daughter-in-law, Celia Howes, got sworn in as a Multnomah County Circuit Court judge the same day you got sworn in as a Marion County Circuit Court judge. So I'm sure you and she will be having many interesting discussions at the judicial conferences in the state. So congratulations and welcome to the Circuit Court.
Thank you very much, Counselor.
Councilor Hoy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Judge, for coming down and talking to us. I just wanted to thank you also for attending the Lansing Neighborhood Association recently. I think, like I mentioned there, you're the first judge I think I've ever seen in the neighborhood meeting, and I thought it was really wonderful for the neighbors to get a chance to have a little chat with you and for you to be so accessible to folks. So I just wanted to thank you and congratulate you on your appointment.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Counselor. Good luck to you. Good job today. I saw you at the chamber. Do your thing.
Thank you.
Yeah, I want to join Hoy in that. They had all three of us at that Lansing Neighborhood Association, judge, president of the council, and mayor, and it was that was pretty neat to see you there. I got to tell you, I have never seen a judge at a neighborhood association in all 15 years I've spent on the council and as mayor. So congratulations on doing that. I think it's always a surprise to discover just what, as you pointed out, kind of the level of humanity you all bring to the bench and how important that is. So thank you so much for coming to Lansing. And I know you're going to other neighborhood groups as well.
Thank you very much.
Councilor Nordyke.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good evening, Judge Johnson. Good to see you. I will echo my colleagues' comments. Judge Johnson joined us at the Swan neighborhood, the Southwest Association Neighbors meeting recently. And yeah, it makes a great impression on folks to access to justice means approachability of justice itself, in my view. So I sincerely appreciate you doing that hard work of going out into the community and doing that listening that is so important from folks from our community. I know you have a very full docket. That's the thing a lot of folks may or may not know. As soon as you're sworn in, you're given your caseload right away, Judge. And I sincerely appreciate all the work that the Oregon Judicial Department, which is the entire Oregon judiciary, is really starting to lean into mental health work. And I hope that you'll have opportunity when you're not busy running trials or approving warrants and all the other important work of being a judge to participate in that, because I'm sure your perspective and your experiences will be greatly appreciated.
May I say something? At the Chamber of Commerce, after hearing how everybody was the houselessness was the main issue, I went back to my office and told my judicial assistant, look, I want to see tours of our services. I want to see bridges. I want to see arches. I want to see lead. Like, how does this stuff work? What are they doing when they check in? What are they supposed to be doing? Let me try to understand a little bit better about, we can't just keep putting them in jail, but where are we putting them? What's happening? Is it working? Is it useful? So yeah, that prompted me to do that. So that's definitely something else I do want to get a hold of. Yes.
Great. Thank you. That'll be really helpful. We'll look forward to your recommendation because we keep being told there's no room at the jail. So, and rightly so. So we'll look forward to any thoughts you have. Please come back and share them if you see openings you think we should be involved in, or Marion County, anyone else. We're really looking forward to, and particularly from the unique perspective you bring to this issue. So thank you. Okay. Councilor Stapleton.
Thank you. And thank you, Judge Johnson. And congratulations. And it's a pleasure to meet you. I haven't had the pleasure as of yet, but I hope to very soon. Just speaking, listening to you all talk, I am really, really interested in restorative justice. And at some point in time, I would love to sit down with you and talk about the philosophy behind how you are planning on running this new job that you have, and seeing how we can work together and share ideas and try and move forward all together on this.
That's why I'm here.
Great. Invite him over to Grant neighborhood. You've got 6 neighborhoods. You can bring him in on a whole bunch of them.
Yeah, I was thinking, how the heck did that happen? I didn't know I could invite a judge. That's fantastic.
Yeah, exactly. I'm on the website.
Yeah. Well, Stapleton's your person. She's got a whole batch of them to work with. Okay, Judge, thank you very much. Really appreciate you coming.
Thank you so much.
Sorry, Councilor Gonzalez raised his hand. Just a sec.
No, it was just to welcome him. Thank you very much, Judge. It's an honor to be in your presence.
I appreciate that. That humbles me.
Excellent. Thank you again, Judge.
Also,
Johnson.
Councilor Leon, Mr. Mayor. Councilor Leon.
What again?
Councilor Leon has her hand up, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, she just jumped up. What can we do for you, Councilor Young?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Judge Johnson, looking forward to all the adventures that you're going to be doing for the courts. And you mentioned earlier that folks who were invited to come to your court and to observe. For people who might not have come to the courthouse before, what is a way for them to get in there to go to your court, to your chambers? Like, what floor are you on?
4B. Courtroom 4B. You're gonna have to go through the magnometers, get swiped. But yeah, you can come upstairs. You can call ahead, find out if I have something on. I mean, it's an open docket. It's an open courtroom, unless it's something sensitive. That's why you actually can call ahead. I'm such and such. The judge said call, see what he has on the docket, anything interesting. I have on Friday, I have a misdemeanor assault. It's supposed to be a 1-day trial.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Excellent. Okay. Again, Judge, thank you very much.
Thank
really
you so much.
And anytime, come on back.
I will. Thank you so much. Have a beautiful evening.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll move on then. I've got Elise Leipnix. I apologize if I mispronounced that, Elise.
That's okay. It's Litnix is pretty close.
So. Oh, okay. You're on.
Okay.
3 minutes.
Under 6B this evening, you will see the Center 50 Plus Advisory Commission Annual Report. I am Elise Lipnix and Vice Chair of the Center 50 Plus Advisory Commission, representing the Alzheimer's Association of Oregon. I am pleased to be here to be sharing the Center 50 Plus Annual Report. The year 2021 was one of continued growth and healing. The center was able to follow safety guidelines and open up for in-person activities in a 2-phase approach, both in July and further rollout in September. Although the center is not open for drop-in activities, it has been possible for seniors to participate in fitness, education classes, and hobby areas. The growing pains occurred as patrons were asked to embrace new technology and procedures. While seniors had to learn how to make an appointment or register in advance for these activities, it also allowed the center to move into more current operational systems, joining the rest of the world. For some, these small changes could have been a barrier to accessing the center, but because the center provides peer support and training, seniors could get the support they needed. This just further confirms our friendship model at Center 50 Plus. We are all in this together. Whether it was facing the COVID-19 pandemic or facing life's challenges and age-related illnesses, Center 50 Plus brings us all together to face life together. During COVID, we learned how to be together better. And what that really meant was that prior to the pandemic, being together was easy. The building was open and everyone was invited to join. When the building could not be the glue, it required everyone to work harder at being together, stretching themselves to embrace technology, being creative on how to meet safely, enjoying old school methods like the telephone and letter writing, and prioritizing their time to help one another. The results of these efforts were nothing but impressive. Just a few examples of the good things that we did. Combating isolation and loneliness through friendship and connections. Total outreach volunteers, 150. 1,870 volunteer hours. Impact and reach was 2,678 residents living independently at home or in 29 partner facilities. nursing, assisted care, and 55+ communities. Friendship boxes, 297 delivered utilizing 10 volunteers and 92 volunteer hours. Friendship Brigade and Canine Corps visiting volunteers did 170 door visits through the WOW van, outdoor visits, window parades, utilizing 35 volunteers, including 10 dog teams, 275 volunteer hours. Friendship Brigade carrying craft cards, 4,900 cards delivered, 350 average January through September, 1,750 last quarter, utilizing 30 volunteers and 255 volunteer hours. And our Friendly Caller program, 82 recipients, utilizing 75 volunteers, average 52, for 1,248 volunteer hours.
Excellent. Well, thank you. Thank you very much. I can't, I think I want to just ask you, there were, Councilor Nordyke, I thought, ran through a series of kind of the information about what all's been going on out there. I mean, I'm enormously proud of what's been happening at Center 50+. And I just wondered if you had any further thoughts on that, or I see Marilyn's here with you. The one thing that Marilyn and I worked together with AARP on a sort of making Salem a city that works for people as they age. And one of the things I thought 50+ did so well during the past 2 years was dealing with one of the really fundamental issues that seniors face, and that's loneliness, isolation, certainly healthcare and travel, all that, but the loneliness and isolation that can come with older age as you lose your friends, you're separated from your family, just the tremendous work you all do in that area. I wondered, either you or Marilyn can talk a little about that bit of it again. I was really taken with all that work you did.
We're very proud of it. I would invite Marilyn to speak if she's here.
She's right next to you in my screen.
Oh, she.
Good evening. Good evening. You know, loneliness and isolation predates COVID, and we've been addressing it for many years. But the truth of the matter is it's about, when we talk about isolation and loneliness, we also are talking about a series of loss that we are trying to adjust to. You know, we look at our lives as we face our older years, and our families moved out and our job careers have ended. And so many of those social connections and support systems that we had in place in our younger years have changed or have gone away. And really, that is what we've been addressing, is that it's not just Center 50+ that is going to be the one that helps with social isolation and loneliness, but that it takes a community. And that's really what we've been working on through the Age Friendly Network and the Age Friendly Communities Initiative with AARP, is recognizing that for an older adult to live and have vital, engaged lives for their lifetime, it's going to take every neighbor, every member of the church, every business community stepping forward and wrapping around services to our older adults. And that's really what's exciting about the age-friendly work.
Great, great. Anyone have any questions on this program? You're all going to be old someday, trust me. Or you hope you will be. It's this, I tell you, this is one of the unsung programs we have. This is a city program. This is something we do for a substantial part of our community that is often overlooked. And I can't tell you, I think how important it is, and how important it is to the health and well-being of the people served by this program. In fact, I initially kind of laughed when the name was changed to 50+, because I was 50+ then. And I'll tell you, I fully understand now why it starts at 50+ and moves forward, because your life does start to dramatically change, and changes in both good and more difficult ways. So this is a program we do for that huge portion of our population in a city that is aging that can often be overlooked. So congratulations, you guys. Good work again and again. Thank you for this.
Thank you.
Okay, move on then to Robert Sahlberg.
All right, can you all hear me?
Yep.
All right. Good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. My name is Robert Sahlberg, and I'm the Executive Director of Children's Educational Theater. I'm before you this evening to request a fee waiver for the Jerry Frank Rotary Amphitheater on behalf of the nonprofit Children's Educational Theater, a beloved Salem area institution since 1974, for children and families of all ages and socioeconomic backgrounds. Some of you may have or know children who believe that summer is not summer without CET. As Executive Director since 2003, I am among the Mid-Valley's arts and cultural leaders who work every day to make our city vibrant and to make the arts meaningful and accessible to everyone. This is especially important for people who don't have the financial resources to experience quality theater in our community. As part of our mission, CET provides low to no cost opportunities for those in Salem to see live theater during our 5-week summer season. Because we are a nonprofit, this means we must find free or affordable performance venues. Before COVID, we performed at the Salem Public Library, Salem Art Fair, South Salem High School, and area free and reduced lunch sites. All of these venues generously provided space for us for free. We request that the City Council extend the community's history of generosity by waiving the applicable fee for CET to perform at the Jerry Frank Amphitheater for a few hours over 3 days, July 18th, 19th, and 20th of 2022. As a nonprofit, our budget is tight, more so as a result of COVID. Our main source of income is tuition, which covers only about 60% of our costs. The rest must be raised through grants and fundraisers, and we rely on hundreds of dedicated volunteers every summer to help us. CET provides generous scholarships every summer to support our students in need. In addition to loss of income due to COVID, CET has faced significant costs in the last 2 years due to losing our free office and storage space at South Salem High School before the renovation over the past 3 years. I believe we meet the city's guidelines for a waiver, and I would venture to say that having Salem area kids entertaining children and families free in Riverfront Park on a summer day is exactly what the late Jerry Frank intended for this beautiful community amphitheater. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert, and congratulations on the years you've spent in this. This is just such an outstanding program. I'm really glad you're asking us for a waiver on this. Vanessa? You're muted. Vanessa, you want to? Got it? Okay.
I hate when that happens.
I
right?
know.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Sahlberg, for being here tonight. I also want to commend you for your MC duties at the Saxon Success Fund at South Salem High School. That's greatly appreciated. Go Saxons. But returning to CET, what I'm curious to hear more about is you work with the kids directly. And what kind of benefits do you see from the kids from participating in theater? Are there life skills? Are there public speaking skills? Are there mental health benefits to child's educational theater that you've observed through your time with the program?
All of the above. I would say the main thing that we want kids to leave CET with is a sense of self and a sense of self-confidence. And that middle school age is, I think, awkward for everybody. And that's kind of our niche group. We do serve kids in elementary school and in high school, but we want kids to leave CET braver and more confident than we found them. We're not looking to push out the next John Heater, even though he did CET. We want kids to have that sense of confidence. And if they go on to love acting, that's awesome. What I love about CET is we are able to attract a broad swath of kids from Salem that can't do theater during the school year. And many of them are athletes and musicians or kids that haven't found a place to fit in somewhere else. And CET brings them back year after year. And it's oftentimes called magical, and it's often, oh, sorry, my battery's dying. It's a magical place for kids to be. And the atmosphere, if you've ever walked through the halls of CET, you would feel that. And we were at North Salem High School this past summer, intermixed with lots of other different summer school programs. And every day I got a comment from the North Salem High School staff saying, this is amazing. Our kids are watching your kids and they want to do it too. And they're amazed at how outgoing and how brave and how eclectic and eccentric your kids are. And they're bold and brave, and they're okay to be who they are. So that helps mental health, that helps confidence, that helps people move on to higher education. And when they enter back into the school year, we want them to not fear the speech they have to give. We want them to be able to make friends. We would want them to feel confident in those interpersonal relationships. So that's really what CET is about. And interwoven in there is kids getting on stage and doing theater.
Great. Okay, Councilor Stapleton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, just quickly, could you tell me a little bit about the demographic makeup of the kids that get to attend this program every summer? And also, if you could talk about, I know it's a little bit of an expensive program. I know I've looked into it for my kids. And how do you help kids who are in lower income families afford to come to your program? And do you have maybe financial packages to help them do that?
Yeah, a lot of our kids do come from the South area, and we have made a distinct push every year to broaden our base of kids from all the neighborhoods of CET. And our board is 100% committed to making sure that finances aren't a barrier for any family. We held a 40th anniversary celebration in 2014 where we raised $75,000 just strictly for scholarships, and that account remains robust, and that account remains well funded. And we have not turned away any child that has asked for any financial assistance to attend our program. So one of the pushes that we always have to make is making sure that everybody knows who we are and that the program's accessible, because we want to diversify and we want to continue to do that on a yearly basis. And part of that is being able to not say no when people need financial assistance. So we give away about $10,000 to $12,000 a year in scholarships, with hoping other people will continue to apply each year with money left over, basically. So finances we don't want finances to be a barrier for any family.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had a follow-up, if I may.
Yeah.
I know that part of the program is also heavy on volunteer hours from parents. And how does that, please correct me if I'm wrong, and how does that work with those kids who are needing that financial aid? A lot of times, they have two working parents, and volunteering the amount of time that is required for the program would be a challenge for those families. Is that also considered in your program for helping folks with finances?
Yep, we don't want the parent commitment to be a barrier either, and so we have other parents that are willing to volunteer in their place, or they can part of their application for assistance can speak to the inability for them to meet the requirement. And so if somebody, that's another way, we need the volunteers, but at the same time, we don't want a child not to be able to participate because they can't have a volunteer in their from their family. Part of the benefit of CET is we understand that when adults understand what their kids are doing, and when the kids see the adults understanding what they're doing, it creates a bond between them for the program. But we understand that that's not necessarily a reality for every kid. So there are accommodations for people that can't fulfill the parent requirement as well.
Thank you.
Councilor Hoy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Actually, Councilor Stapleton asked very similar questions to those I was going to ask, so I'm good. Thanks.
Great, thank you. Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Sauber. Appreciate you coming down.
Thank you.
Ms. Medlock.
Hi, can you see me?
We can see you.
Okay, I am here today to speak on agenda item 5B, which is a motion from Councilor Nordyke directing staff to explore the creation of a request for proposals to operate a mobile crisis unit. So in regards to that, I want to say that most police officers want to be police officers, not social workers. And in Eugene, they were really happy to let someone trained in mental health deal with someone having a mental health crisis. To say nothing of the fact that sometimes just having someone show up wearing a uniform and a gun can escalate a situation rather than de-escalate. I have here, let's see, Eugene Police Chief Chris Skinner explains their Cahoots Mobile Crisis Unit in the following quote: "They don't need jail. What they need is to be able to be de-escalated from their crisis. They need a ride to a mental health facility or to a mental care facility or wrap around with services. That's what the people need. They don't need to be going to jail every time." And I think Eugene's police chief, Chris Skinner, said that quite well. I think many of us realize how important it is for us to have a mobile crisis unit, especially in this time after the pandemic, when so many people are dealing with mental health crises right now across the age range. I just want everyone to know that whatever you are dealing with right now, whatever crises are in your life, there are people out there that care. And so I will yield the rest of my time.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, I don't have anyone else under that. I have one person left who is going to speak on an item not on the agenda. I'm going to let him get up now. We've got some fairly potentially lengthy public hearings. So I'd like to see if Daryl Barrett is here. Hi.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Hello, Mayor and City Council members. My name is Daryl Barrett. I'm the coordinator for the Job Corps Scholars Program at Chemeketa Community College. I'm aware that many residents of Salem may not be aware that the city of Salem has its own Job Corps program. Young people no longer have to go to far-flung places like the coast and in the forest to receive free career technical training. So the Job Corps Scholars Program at Chemeketa was implemented in 2020, and the college received a grant of $1.2 million to train 80 young adults. So those 80 young adults should be low income, and we will be providing certificates for them in skilled trades such as medical assisting, pharmacy technician, emergency medical technician, all the offerings that Chemeketa has that can be done in 1 year or less. In addition to technical training, we provide intensive counseling support, and we also assist them to transition to employment, to the military, to an apprenticeship, or to further education to do an associate's degree or a bachelor's degree. So this wonderful program is funded by the U.S. Department of Labor, and it is a demonstration grant for 3 years. We're halfway through. I thought it would be wise to share this with the City Council and the residents so that we can receive referrals of young adults that may be eligible for the program. In addition to free tuition, books, and fees, we also provide gas cards to remove transportation barriers. We provide food cards to the young adults when they're attending classes on campus. And we also provide connections to community and college resources. So I was invited by Laurie Shaw Caceres to make this presentation. She's wonderful. I want to give kudos to her. The city of Salem is a signatory to a memorandum of understanding that we created a workforce partnership. The Willamette Workforce Partnership is also a part of that, the Salem Housing Authority. So I thank you for the opportunity to present and share this information today.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Barrett. How do people reach you? What's the What's the way to get involved?
Absolutely. The best way to get involved is through our website, by Googling Job Corps Scholars Shemikada. And there is an interest form that young people can fill out to express interest. But everyone else, the public, there's a phone number listed on the website. And I will also provide the information to the recorder, Amy Johnson, via email.
Great. What's the age group you're serving? What these young people, what young from where to where?
From ages 16 to 24.
Okay. Great. Well, no wonder you guys are #1 in the state, huh? That's a great program. That's just excellent. Thank you so much for coming down. And if you want to update us sometime, come on down again. We'd love to hear from you again.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that's public comment on these issues. So we'll move on to the consent calendar. Councilor Hoy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move approval of the consent calendar.
I'll second.
Second. Sorry.
Thank you. We have item 3.1A, the March 28, 2022 draft city council minutes. Item 3.2A, transfer of fiscal year 2022 general fund appropriations. Item 3.3A, collective bargaining agreement between the city and Salem Professional Firefighters International Association of Firefighters, IAFF Local 314, AFL-CIO. Item 3.3B, collective bargaining agreement between the city and 911 Professional Communications Employees Association. Item 3.3D, addition of the federal and state holiday Juneteenth as a city paid holiday benefit for eligible employees. And that concludes the consent calendar.
Great. Any discussion? Okay, if the recorder please call a roll.
Councilor Leung.
Aye.
Councilor Gonzalez.
Aye.
Councilor Hoy.
Aye.
Councilor Nordyke.
Aye.
Councilor Varney.
Aye.
Councilor Stapleton.
Aye.
Councilor Anderson.
Aye.
Councilor Phillips.
Aye.
Mayor Bennett.
Aye. Okay, motion passes. We'll move on then to our first public hearing, 22-144. Declare the public hearing open and turn it over to the recorder to introduce it, I guess, whoever's going to take over.
Thank you, Mayor. The Salem City Council will now conduct a public hearing to consider the petitioner-initiated annexation of territory located at 4090 Milton Street Northeast. The criteria applicable to the decision is SRC 260.060C. Testimony, arguments, and evidence must be directed toward the applicable criteria or other criteria which the person believes to apply to the decision. Failure to raise an issue prior to the close of the public hearing in person or in writing, or failure to provide statements or evidence with sufficient specificity to provide the parties and the city council an opportunity to respond to the issue precludes appeal to the Land Use Board of Appeals on that issue. A similar failure to raise constitutional issues relating to proposed conditions of approval precludes action for damages in circuit court. The hearing will begin with staff presentation and no individuals signed up to testify this evening.
Okay, Ms. Cole.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm Pamela Cole, planner with Community Development Department. Tonight I'm presenting first the staff report for annexation case C747 for the territory identifies as 4090 Milton Street Northeast. So I'd like to enter the staff report attachments and presentation into the record. The subject property is about 0.91 acres and it's contiguous to city limits on the north. It's designated single-family residential in the comprehensive plan map, as are the properties around it. It's zoned single-family residential in Marion County. Again, most of the properties around it are similarly zoned, and the properties in the city are also zoned City of Salem, single-family residential. So the automatic designation for the territory will be single-family residential and that's consistent with the comprehensive plan designation. Nearby properties are mostly developed with single-family dwellings. And on this property, we don't have any development proposals at this time, but the property is large enough that it could be suitable for a land division or for middle housing development later. Staff found that the proposed annexation meets the annexation criteria, including whether it's consistent with comprehensive plan and statewide planning goals, allows orderly, efficient, and timely provision of urban services, and serves the public interest. In the staff report, you'll see that we received comments from Public Works. They indicated that an urban growth area development permit would not be required for development of this territory later. The property is 0.07 mile just outside the 0.5 mile service radius of Hoodview Park. The fire department said that the response time would be 4 minutes, 20 seconds from Station 8, and finance estimated the total tax rate would increase about 29%. Additionally, Salem-Keizer School District estimated that 2 students could be added to schools if the property develops, and they would be eligible for transportation to Hayesville and McKay and in the walk zone for Stevens. This property is in the Northgate area, and the neighborhood association had no comments on the case. This is another voter exempt annexation because all of the property owners signed the petition. It's within the urban growth boundary, subject to our comprehensive plan and contiguous to city limits. Although it may not be referred to the voters, City Council has the authority to decide whether to annex. Therefore, staff recommends that Council adopt Order 2022-4, determining that the proposal meets the criteria, applying the city zoning, and approving withdrawal from Marion County Fire District Number 1, and in this case, East Salem Sewer and Drainage District. I'm available for any questions you may have.
No one has signed up. No public member of the public has signed up to speak. So if you have any questions on this, Ms. Cole's here to answer them. Okay, then I'm going to, if I don't see anybody, I'm going to close the public hearing. And Councilor Gonzalez, this is in your ward.
Thank you, Mayor. I move staff recommendation to adopt order number 2022-4.
Second.
Second by Hoy. Any discussion? Okay, if the recorder please call the roll.
Councilor Gonzalez.
Aye.
Councilor Hoy.
Aye.
Councilor Nordyke.
Aye.
Councilor Varney.
Aye.
Councilor Stapleton.
Aye.
Councilor Anderson.
Aye.
Councilor Phillips.
Aye.
Councilor Leung.
Aye.
Mayor Bennett.
Aye. Okay. Motion passes. Oops, I'm going to close that public hearing as well. Just make sure I did that. Okay, we'll move on then to 22-145.
Salem City Council will now conduct a public hearing to consider the petitioner-initiated annexation of territory located at 4929 Auburn Road Northeast. The criteria applicable to the decision is SRC 260.060C. Testimony, arguments, and evidence must be directed toward the applicable criteria or other criteria which the person believes to apply to the decision. Failure to raise an issue prior to the close of the public hearing in person or in writing, or failure to provide statements or evidence with sufficient specificity to provide the parties and the City Council an opportunity to respond to the issue precludes appeal to the Land Use Board of Appeals on that issue. A similar failure to raise constitutional issues relating to proposed conditions of approval precludes an action for damages in circuit court. The hearing will begin again with Pamela Cole, and there are no individuals signed up for this hearing. Thank you.
Thank you again. So tonight's second case, again, is annexation case C-748 for the territory at 4929 Auburn Road Northeast. And I'd like to enter staff report attachments and presentation into the record. The subject property is just shy of 1/3 of an acre, and it's contiguous to the city limits on the south. The applicant requested annexation in this case to obtain city water services, and council has previously approved that. The territory is designated developing residential, and adjacent properties are either developing residential or single-family residential. This territory is zoned Urban Transition 5 in Marion County, and other properties in the city are zoned RA in the light green and RS in yellow on the map. The territory will automatically be zoned City RA Residential Agriculture upon annexation consistent with developing residential comprehensive plan designation. This small property is located near others that are developed with single family on large lots, and new subdivision is being developed to the south in the city limits. And we have no proposals for development at this time. I understand that it was more of a water quality issue that encouraged the applicant to apply to get city water. Again, we found that the proposed annexation meets the criteria, including whether it's consistent with comprehensive plan and statewide planning goals, allows orderly, efficient, and timely provision of urban services, and serves the public interest. In this case, an urban growth area development permit would be required for development because the property is outside the urban service area. It's just outside the 0.5 mile service area of Royal Oaks Park. The fire response time would be 5 minutes, 15 seconds. And again, the total tax rate increase would be approximately 29%. This territory is so small that the school district estimated there would not be any additional students added to schools if it develops further. But the students there are eligible for transportation to Auburn, Houck, and North Salem. We received comments from East Lancaster Neighborhood Association this afternoon, and they had no objections to this annexation. Again, this one is voter exempt, and the petitioners submitted the application, and it's within urban growth boundaries, subject to comprehensive plan and contiguous to city limits, and the annexation may be approved by City Council, but it will not go to the voters. Therefore, we recommend that Council adopt Order Number 2022-5 ANX, determining that the proposal meets the criteria applying the city zoning and approving withdrawal from Marion County Fire District Number 1. And that concludes my presentation tonight.
Okay, great. Thank you. There are no members of the public signed up to testify. Do you have any questions for Ms. Cole? Okay. I'm going to close this public hearing then. Councilor Hoy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move we adopt Order Number 2022-5, determining that the proposal meets the applicable criteria, applying city zoning for the territory, and approving withdrawal from Marion County Fire District Number 1.
Second.
Second by Stapleton. Any discussion? Okay, if the recorder please call the roll.
Councilor Hoy.
Aye.
Councilor Nordyke.
Aye.
Councilor Varney.
Aye.
Councilor Stapleton.
Aye.
Councilor Anderson.
Aye.
Councilor Phillips.
Aye.
Councilor Leung.
Aye.
Councilor Gonzalez.
Aye.
Mayor Bennett.
Aye. Okay, motion passes. Okay, we'll go to our final public hearing, 22-102. I'll open the public hearing.
Salem City Council will now hold a public hearing for the purpose of reviewing the Planning Commission's decision for case number CPC ZC 21-06, approving a comprehensive plan map amendment and zone change from RA residential agricultural and NCMU neighborhood center mixed use to RM2 multiple family residential for approximately 24.84 acres of the northern portion of a 36.86 acre parcel located at the 2100 block of Doaks Ferry Road Northwest. The applicable criteria for the comprehensive plan map amendment is SRC Chapter 64.025E2, and the applicable criteria for the zone change is SRC 265.005. Testimony, arguments, and evidence must be directed toward the applicable criteria or other criteria which the person believes to apply to the decision. A failure to raise an issue accompanied by statements or evidence sufficient to afford the decision maker and the parties an opportunity to respond to the issue shall preclude appeal to the Land Use Board of Appeals on that issue. A similar failure to raise constitutional issues relating to proposed conditions of approval precludes an action for damages in circuit court. The hearing will be conducted with staff presentation first, followed by testimony from the applicant, who is limited to 10 minutes. The neighborhood association is limited to 5 minutes. Other interested parties are limited to 3 minutes, and the applicant has a rebuttal time limited to 5 minutes, limited to matters which were introduced during the public hearing. And I believe Dan Atchison may be having something to say.
Yeah, Dan, did you have anything you want to?
First, I wanted us to have counselors announce any ex parte contacts they may have had prior to the hearing.
Councilor Varney.
Thank you, Mayor Bennett. Yes, and in the interest of full disclosure, I am a member of the West Salem Neighborhood Association, and so I did attend the general WSNA meetings where documents process associated with this application was discussed. Also during a special meeting of the general membership, the WSNA voted to support our West Salem neighbors' request that the Planning Commission hold the record open longer in order to have time to address some of their concerns. I have not prejudged tonight's decision as to whether or not to affirm the Planning Commission's decision. I will make my decision based on the evidence and criteria in our materials and what is presented this evening.
Okay, thank you very much. Anyone else?
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah.
one other, I guess, point of order, if you want to call it that. In the West Salem Neighborhood Association's written testimony, they had a request for additional time to speak. They consider themselves an appellant. This matter was a call up by council motion. It wasn't an appeal.
Right.
So pursuant to your rules, they have 5 minutes to provide testimony.
Right. Okay. On the one question then on that as well, we've got 2 people signed up for the applicant. Is that like 5 minutes apiece, or how does that do they divide the 10 minutes between them that the applicant?
Correct. They have a total of the applicant has a total of 10 minutes and they can divide that as they see fit.
Okay, great. Okay, anyone else? All right, we'll move forward then. And Ms. Donaldson, I guess you're first up.
Great, thank you. Let me share my screen. Good evening. I'm Jamie Donaldson, planner with the Community Development Department, presenting before you tonight the comprehensive plan change and zone change case for the 2100 block of Doaks Ferry Road Northwest. I request that the presentation, staff report, attachments, and recording of the Planning Commission hearing be entered into the record. The application before you tonight includes a comprehensive plan map amendment and neighborhood plan change from developing residential with a 2-acre portion of mixed use to multifamily residential, and a zone change from RA residential agriculture with a 2-acre portion of NCMU neighborhood center mixed use to RM2 multiple family residential for the northern portion of the subject property. The applicant has not submitted a land division or site plan application at this time. The subject property is located in West Salem, north of Glen Creek Road, shown here on the larger vicinity map. The property abuts Orchard Heights Road northwest to the south, a minor arterial shown in blue, Doaks Ferry Road northwest to the east, a major arterial shown in pink, and Landegard Drive northwest, designated as a collector street in orange, dead ends into the property on the west side. The subject property is approximately 36.86 acres in size, is currently vacant, and contains a parcel of land solely within its boundary, housing a single-family residence, which is not a part of this proposal. The Salem Area Comprehensive Plan map designates the subject property as developing residential, shown in green, and mixed use, shown in pink. The proposal includes changing the northern portion of the property's comprehensive plan designation from developing residential and approximately a 2-acre portion of mixed use designation to multifamily residential. The majority of surrounding properties are also designated developing residential in green. The subject property is split zoned RA residential agriculture, shown in green, and NCMU neighborhood center mixed use, shown in brown. The proposal includes changing the property's RA zoned portion and an additional 2 acres of the NCMU portion to the RM2 multiple family residential zone for a total of 24.84 acres. Again, the majority of surrounding properties are designated as RA in green. The proposed designations are equally or better suited due to an alteration in circumstances, social, economic, and demographic patterns, including a need for multifamily residential land and surplus of single-family residential land. With a multiple family residential designation, the subject property can be developed as multifamily dwellings, maximizing the density while helping to meet housing needs within Salem's urban growth boundary, and reducing the deficit identified in the HNA. In addition, the site is better suited as a multifamily use due to its proximity to a high school, middle school, and elementary schools, as well as major and minor arterials and a collector street. The Planning Commission found that the proposal meets the criteria for comprehensive plan changes and zone changes, including availability of public services, logical urbanization, conformance to applicable SACP policies and statewide planning goals, public interest and general benefit, and no significant effect on a transportation facility as conditioned. The property is within the West Salem Neighborhood Association boundary. The Neighborhood Association has submitted testimony to the Planning Commission with concerns that the TPR analysis, traffic impacts, significant effect, and mitigation were not adequately addressed. Individual citizens have commented with concerns about traffic, requests for traffic mitigation, requests for alternative zoning, and concerns over school traffic and overcrowding. As discussed in the staff report, a trip cap may be imposed to ensure that the development does not have a significant effect on the transportation system by limiting the number of trips to the same level as the current designation or to a level that will not degrade the performance of the intersections. For this case, the traffic engineering staff has recommended a trip cap of a cumulative total of 2,270 average daily vehicle trips. This trip cap also limits the development to a maximum of 500 multifamily units, which is less than the maximum allowed density for the RM2 zone. Both the city traffic engineer and ODOT have concurred with the applicant's TPR analysis of no significant effect with the trip cap in place. When a trip cap is imposed, enforcement occurs at site plan review. Staff reviews the land uses proposed for a development and calculates the trips to ensure that the proposed trips do not exceed the trip cap. Future development of the site would also be subject to a traffic impact analysis, at which time specific transportation system improvements may be required to address specific issues related to the site layout, access, and circulation. Therefore, staff recommends that council affirm the Planning Commission's decision to approve the application as conditioned. That concludes the presentation, and I am available to help answer any questions.
Very good. I'm sure we'll have some for you in a few minutes. I'd like to go then to the public comment portion. We have two folks speaking on behalf of the applicant, Mark Lowen and Alan Sorum. I know you gentlemen, I'm sure, understand that you have 10 minutes between you. Somebody try that. Yes. Okay. Okay, who's going to go first? Mark, I've got you first.
Yeah, actually, John L is going to go. John L is a co-applicant, and he's going to speak on behalf.
Ah, okay. What's your and please give your name. We don't have you signed up on the list here.
Good evening. My name is John Eld. I'm with Titan Hill LLC, and I'm here with members of my team. I have Mark Lowen, also with Titan Hill LLC, Mark Grins and Natalie Janey with Multitech Engineering, Joe Bestman with Transite Consulting, and Alan Sorm with Sawfield Griggs. We're a local company based out of Salem, and we develop a mix of housing options. We have developed single-family residential, senior housing, and we are currently working on several multifamily developments throughout the city. We live in the city, we care about this city, and we've done a lot and will continue to do a lot to bring a mix of housing to the residents of this city. Tonight, we have proposed a zone change for the 2100 block of Doaks Ferry Road. It includes a request to rezone a portion of the property from RA and NCMU to RM2. I would first like to thank staff for all of their hard work as they've moved through this process and for the extremely thorough staff report that they have provided. After reading through the public comment letters, we feel staff has done an excellent job in responding to resident concerns in their report. We appreciate all this feedback and welcome further feedback as this project moves forward through site plan and design review. This feedback will be taken very seriously and incorporated in the final design as practical. One thing I would like to talk about, several in the West Neighborhood Association, I believe E.M. Easterly's testimony and a letter from the Dalkeys, it discusses the NCMU and the lack of a master plan and how that is not appropriate. But I would like to point out to Salem Code section 532.020, which allows for development of single family without a master plan. And so that testimony is incorrect. One other comment I would like to call attention to is the letter from Chariots in the original staff report. We very much appreciate their letter of support, and we agree that providing a bus shelter conveniently located to the future project would be extremely beneficial for everyone. Allowing these future residents access to public transportation and is critical to helping address the traffic concerns that are common among the residents of West Salem. Again, I would like to thank staff and Planning Commission for all their hard work and appreciate the recommendation of approval. We support the staff recommendation as well as the proposed condition of approval. This proposal is also consistent with our Salem vision that is working its way through the Planning Commission as we speak. We know that traffic is the biggest concern, and a lot of time and energy has gone into reviewing this initial report and supplemental findings between our traffic engineer, the city's engineers, and ODOT. The findings are the same. Our proposal is consistent with state and local jurisdiction standards. I appreciate your time, and I would like to hand the rest of my time over to Joe Bestman, who will help address these concerns about traffic. If there are any specific concerns council would like my team to address, we'd be happy to answer those questions.
Great. Joe, go ahead.
All right, good evening, Mayor, councilors, staff. For the record, Joe Bestman, professional traffic engineer with Transite Consulting. And Jamie did such a good, thorough job. I'm trying to shorten my comments even further because I think she really hit on my high points. But again, I think there's a lot of confusion about what a rezone analysis is. And really, this is just a comparative analysis of what could be built in the existing zoning to what could be built in the proposed zoning. There's a lot of subjective assumptions, and for that reason, we spend a lot of time coordinating these analyses with the city, with ODOT, making sure that everyone's on board with those assumptions before we launch into the more detailed technical analysis. And it was a very detailed technical analysis, and there was a lot of iterations back and forth between us, city staff, and ODOT to make sure that there was agreement. There was. Prior to the Planning Commission meeting, we received a number of comments from concerned neighbors, very, very good comments, in fact. And we took a lot of time and painstakingly went through those. Bottom line is, when you go through the criteria, the criteria is met for the zone change. We comply with the Oregon Highway Plan. We comply with the City of Salem requirements. And it's a very unique site surrounded by schools, in no way connected to those schools. So we're even excited about the next steps for this process. So thank you for your time. I'm going to turn it back over to John to close out.
John, Alan, finish with our.
Okay.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Mayor Bennett and councilors, for the opportunity to testify tonight. We do believe that the documents in the record, including the ultimate decision from the Planning Commission, are very thorough and address many of the issues that were discussed in the comments from the Neighborhood Association that were submitted just this afternoon. So while we didn't have a long time to prepare, we do believe that the issues are really the same that we addressed back in February. as Joe indicated, it was really primarily focused on the questions related to whether or not there was ultimately satisfaction with Goal 12 and the transportation planning rule. The ultimate conclusion and findings were that, yes, Goal 12 was satisfied. There's not a significant effect because there's a condition of approval that limits the number of units that will ultimately be able to be developed on the site. That coupled with the conditions of approval for roadside improvements along the subject property and also the city's own project along Doaks Ferry road improvements. All of those taken together, they demonstrate that there's no significant effect. A couple other items, there was a request by some of the individuals submitting testimony on behalf of the Neighbors Association and others asking the Planning Commission to consider whether or not a different zone might be possible, perhaps RM1 with the goal of having less density. With that, I would respond with a couple of comments. One, this proposed zone change is needed in order for the city to further its efforts in complying with Goal 10 and addressing the long known deficit in housing needs analysis. That's part of the Our Salem project. This will help that reach that goal, but the Our Salem project has not yet been adopted by city. So where we are tonight is that we still have a deficit of known need of more than 4,100 units in the planning period. And this project will go a long way in trying to address that known need and creating new multifamily out of land that previously would have been designated for single family residential, of which there's a significant surplus. Another comment that has been made in the record on multiple occasions is that, West Salem is bearing more than its fair share of new multifamily development. A lot of multifamily development has occurred in recent years in West Salem, but that is really just an effort to try to address historical imbalances. And so that concept is expressed in the new draft comprehensive plan policies regarding engagement and equity. And really, the city needs to continue those efforts. And while West Salem may have more new construction on multifamily, it does not have an imbalance and an excess of multifamily as a community as a whole. It's really just restoring historical injustice and imbalance in that regard. And I think those are the primary comments. I'll reserve the rest of the time for rebuttal. Or turn it over to questions.
Okay, are you all done then? The applicant? I just want to make sure. Are you open now for questions? I just want to make sure you all, there were a number of you to speak.
Yeah, if the Mark Lowen or John L. could maybe just speak to that.
Okay.
Yeah, we are now open for questions.
Okay, great. On your traffic needs analysis, I'm just curious, what was the work done? How far down Doaks Ferry do you go? Do you go all the way down to Highway 22 in looking at access in and out of this particular area? Kind of how is that all dealt with? I'm just wondering if you look that far afield or how close you are looking at the mitigations.
Yeah, this is Joe Bestman again for the record. So when we scoped the analysis with City of Salem staff, it didn't go all the way to the bridge connections with Highway 22. So it did not go that far over. And even still, when you look at Wallace Road, I think the trip difference between these two comparative scenarios was 23 p.m. peak hour trips that then get dispersed. So you're talking about a trip difference of 15 trips. And that's what this is all about.
When you say that, what's that mean?
Very little. It means it moves the dial very, very little. It's a very small impact overall.
Okay. And then on the housing needs analysis, I'm just curious, how far does this development take us towards starting to meet the goals of that housing needs analysis? I don't know if that's the right question, but I'm curious about how that was factored into this decision.
we do propose a trip cap of a maximum number of 500 multifamily units. So while we're talking about no actual development, but just the proposal of future multifamily development, the proposal would generate upwards of 500 multifamily units. And so with that deficit of in excess of 4,000, that's significant. And that, that's not forever. That's just to the end of the 2035 planning period. And frankly, we're already 7 years into the overall 20-year time period. But it is a significant effort in that regard. And without it, it will, I would submit, significantly impact the overall our Salem project and the goals of complying with Goal 10, to where the city can ultimately adopt the housing needs analysis report itself.
If it doesn't fit into this portion of the time, have you looked at all at whether these will be market rate or any other kind of rate in terms of what this development's going to look like, whether it's affordable market rate, any kind of distribution of these units into different kinds of housing?
I'll let the applicant speak if they want, but I mean, as part of kind of the criteria, we don't really get into that. So we'll definitely evaluate those as they go forward with actual development proposals and seeing what's there. But I'll let the applicant speak to their efforts.
Well, the other half of that, and I should have asked it with it, is when is that going to be discussed? When would the council get a look at that? Is it during a different phase of this development?
So to date, we haven't had any discussions as far as whether affordable units or market rate or what kind of mix that would entail. It is my understanding, and Jamie can correct me if I'm wrong, but if this zone change is approved, multifamily would be a permitted use. Therefore, it would all be an administrative process at that point, unless it was either called up by council, similar to other land use decisions that council had called up in the past.
Yeah,
that's correct, and it would also go out for noticing to surrounding neighborhood.
Okay. All right, Amy, got any questions? Yes, Councilor Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't know if this is the appropriate time, but I'm curious about what Chariots has said and bringing a bus line up there. And I heard the staff, Ms. Donaldson, talk about that. Is there anything more that either the applicant or the planner can tell us at this particular point about Chariots plans?
Yeah, they have commented that they've requested the City of Salem and or the developer that they work together on the future development plans to ensure that a new bus stop is included along Doaks Ferry Road at the northernmost edge of the property. So they provided a map where they would like to see that and how it works with their transit route right now. And that is something the applicant has agreed to help with and would help with the transit at the development stage.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, well then, if there's no further questions for the applicant at this point, I'm going to go on then to Steve Anderson representing the Neighborhood Association. Steve?
Okay, can I share screen before we start?
Yeah, and it'll be 5 minutes and it'll start when you get the shared screen up. So
do you have that? Wait a minute.
Oh, shoot. Can you get it up?
I'm trying to get it up right now, but hang on just a second. Go to the share screen file. There we go. Yeah. All right. Thank you, Mayor, for that. Welcome, Mayor. City Council, Steve Anderson, West Salem Neighborhood Association, Ward 8. As we look at this process, the issue is traffic. Staff reports a condition 1 where they're proposing a ADT of 2270 with 500 units. They propose, and then their findings say that it will not significantly impact the city and state managed facilities. That's false. We'll provide information for that. Oregon Highway Plan, the 0.03 criteria is false also. If you look at the center here, from the applicant's TIA in 2036, they are showing a 1.01 VA over C peak and a 1.18 PM peak. These are all greater than the traffic mobility standard that ODOT administers on this, since they have jurisdiction at Wallace Road and Glen Creek. So we request that this does not meet the criteria and it should be reversed. Quickly, this right-hand corner shows the worst case analysis, which triggered the ODOT impact analysis. Down here, it shows the proposed at RM1. The neighborhood association said in the record, we don't object to multifamily here. We recommended an RM1 at a trip cap of 1983 as a compromise. This is the applicant's revised TIA data. They recognize the 0.95 criteria. They show you the 0.99, which is over that with the existing, and 1.02. They show a degradation even with the trip cap going from a level of service from D to E. Said differently, what you have here is VOCs in their analysis at cap does not comply with the OHP 1.F5 rule. In addition, we provided and asked the engineers to consider 3 relevant studies. From the Salem River crossing, this 1.07 back in 2012 is the existing traffic, and the applicant's final build out under the trip cap is lower than this. The data is suspect because it doesn't match up here. How can the proposed 2,000 trips be less than what was observed in 2012? This is the Riverbend study, where it's less than the Riverbend study at full build out, a same analysis where staff adopted the ODOT standard. It was before council reviewed it and approved it and said that that is an appropriate standard and that this is okay. So I don't understand why staff did not use the same standard. So condition 1 does not mitigate the significant effects of these 2,070 trips. It does have a significant effect according to the transportation planning rule, and their own TI data shows mitigation per condition 1. The 500 unit trip cap will not comply with the Oregon Highway Plan mobility standards for Wallace Road and Glen Creek. There's no other data submitted in this analysis to say that there's an alternative trip cap. Therefore, criteria is not met. There is degradation at Wallace Road, and we recommend that council reverse this. The criteria is not met. Give the applicant a chance to come back with a proposed mitigation that will meet the 0.95 criteria at Wallace Road and Glen Creek. Logically, 2,270 trips to anybody that's caught in congestion, you ask them and they say, this just doesn't make sense. How can that number of trips not be significant? The applicant's own data says that they cannot meet the criteria with the proposed trip cap. We ask that you reverse it, and I'll take questions.
Any questions for Mr. Anderson? So, Mr. Anderson, it was mentioned that the staff has responded to the neighborhood concerns. Did you have a chance to review staff response to these various concerns and determine the staff didn't answer your questions or problems or what?
They responded to our concerns. The traffic engineer said our request for additional studies in the case was irrelevant without an explanation.
Okay.
They said our proposed, we had suggested the minimum trip cap of 1,000. They didn't think that was logical, and we agree with that. We think it should be a little higher than that, more like what we would find in an RM1 zone at 1,900.
That was your issue, and they said it was not logical, and you agree, or?
They said they're asking for the other studies, the Riverbend study, the traffic impact analysis from the Salem River crossing, and the Congestion Relief Task Force. All of those traffic studies did not apply in this case.
Okay.
We're saying, and we said no, that is relevant data. It shows that the applicant's analysis underestimates the impacts at Glen Creek. The other issue, I think, Mayor, to your question is, we did say as a neighborhood association that we supported multifamily. We thought that that was a good suggestion, but we did not find in the staff report a rationale for the standard, for their determination to say it's not significant. The standard says 0.95, and they provided no data to show why that was relevant. And that was our objection, and is our objection now, is that this proposal trip cap does not meet the appropriate Oregon Highway Plan requirement for that intersection per their jurisdiction and their rulings.
Okay. Anyone else? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. E.M. Easterly.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. I'm E.M. Easterly, Ward 8. Thank you, Council President Hoy, for calling up this Salem Planning Commission decision and thereby asking your colleagues to don their quasi-judicial robes. Councilors, please review all of the evidence and testimony received before deciding whether the Planning Commission's decision complies with the Salem and Oregon land use laws, and before you issue a decision. I make this request because the record contains evidence that staff ignored testimony which directly contradicts the recommended findings staff submitted to the Planning Commission. My written testimony describes several such examples. 1, land zoned NCMU requires an adopted neighborhood center plan per SRC 52532.015 to identify the 5-acre core within the 15-acre site. The applicant has provided no such plan. 2, the 15-acre NCMU zone includes tax lot 900 and a portion of tax lot 400. Yet nowhere in the record is there a legal description of the NCMU and RA zone boundary. 3, the survey submitted by the applicant falsely describes the metes and bounds of tax lot 900, and by so doing, fails to accurately define the 15-acre area of the NCMU zone, as I have detailed in my March 28 testimony. 4, the applicant's revised TIA mitigation proposal fails to comply with the Oregon Highway Plan for 2 reasons. A, Wallace Road does not meet the 0.95 BC mobility performance standard, and B, the proposal trip cap BC will further degrade peak hour travel along West Wallace Road. You see that in my written addenda that I submitted later today. As City Attorney Atchison has reminded all of us, the burden of proof belongs to the applicant. In this case, the applicant submitted information and a traffic mitigation proposal have failed to meet that burden.
Thank you, E.M. Thank you very much. Any questions for E.M.? Anybody? Okay.
Can I ask if he could finish the last part of his statement, or that's not allowed?
He had 3 minutes, Councilor Leung. That's how it works.
Thank you.
You can ask him about it, though. I'll certainly bow to your question. If you've got a question that it is important to you, you go ahead.
No, it was just, I just wanted to hear that last piece, but you won't allow that, so thank you.
Okay. Aaron Felton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, councilors. My name is Aaron Felton. I live in Ward 8. I'm here as a neighbor. I'm also here to support the West Salem Neighborhood Association. I appreciate what Mr. Anderson just said. I oppose the staff recommendation. I urge the council, as Mr. Anderson said, to reject it Formally, I don't believe that the applicants have met the criteria for a quasi-judicial zone change, in particular 1A, 2, and 3. I don't think they've demonstrated it. But most importantly, what I want the council to think about is, on behalf of my neighbors, from the very beginning, when we've been talking about this project, when the developers came and met at the neighborhood association almost a year ago, the project that they shared with us, the project they've envisioned for approximately 500 units of multifamily housing, that would potentially be one of the largest multifamily developments in all of West Salem. It's larger than the Acero complex, if you've driven by that, which is, I think my own just personal research online is 300 units of apartment housing. This would be approximately 500 units. I know this isn't the design stage. We've been told that over and over again. But if you envision that type of a structure going in between Doaks, Orchard Heights, and Landegard, and that area that's being proposed, that's a massive apartment complex. And it's my opinion that the infrastructure that's been described, all the traffic information you heard from people much smarter than me who delved into that, just isn't there. It can't support it the way the traffic currently exists and the way it's been promised to exist, just cannot support that. My neighbors and I, we're not against multifamily housing. We're not against more folks moving into our neighborhood. We just don't think this proposal, as it's outlined, is supportable. And I joined with the neighborhood association urging the council to reject it. So thank you very much for your time.
Great. Thank you, Aaron. Any questions for the district attorney? Here's your last chance.
Mr. Mayor, I'm not here. Please, that's very important. I'm not appearing in that capacity. I'm here as a neighbor only. So
well, good. You're more comfortable. So yes, you think 500 units is too many?
As it's outlined, it is too many for the space that it's currently envisioned for. I do.
Councilor Howie, how many units did we have down on Park and D? How many units have gone in down on the old campus? Do you remember?
I don't recall the number, Mr. Mayor. I apologize.
I was thinking it was a couple hundred went in down there, down in a little corner of the old state hospital campus, right in the middle of Northeast Salem. It'd be about half the size of this. It's part of it is getting a vision of how big 500 is. Okay.
Well, and that's why, Mr. Mayor and Councilor Hoy, I tried to envision if the Acero complex is approximately 300, I just tried to mentally do an image of that just up the street from Landegard in that area. I just couldn't wrap my head around getting that many units plus 200 more into that space unless you built them up very, very high. So that just is not consistent with this small residential quiet neighborhood surrounded by single family homes, trees, and basically a park-like setting. It just doesn't seem to be consistent with that type of environment.
Huh. Okay. Are you familiar with the project over on Park and D? Kind of what's going on there? Have you seen that?
I am not. I'd have to go take a look at that to see to have a better sense of it, sir.
Yeah, to kind of get a sense of what a large development in a small neighborhood looks like might be, because this is certainly in terms of scale and interesting, and it's surprising how light the impact is, frankly.
And what I guess I'm coming from is I'm also trying to take into account, and I know I'm over time, but I guess I want to respond to the question you answered, is I'm also considering the traffic going into the West Salem High School that would be added to with 500 perhaps more occupants in that area. That's a real challenge in trying to think about that. Plus the other proposed multifamily that's currently being proposed on Orchard Heights and Doaks Ferry. I know that's not before the council right now, but I'm thinking about that as well, because that certainly would add potentially more traffic into that interchange. Well, I appreciate that the city has proposed mitigation ideas. It's kind of hard to wrap my head around it, right? How you would get there.
Yeah, that was our concern in my neighborhood about D Street and Center Street when we had that large development come in. Okay, I hear you. Okay, any further questions? Yes, go ahead, Trevor.
Thanks. So Mr. Felton, I had heard in perhaps your testimony or others that the neighborhood association was willing to or was advocating for the RM1 instead of RM2. Do you have any sense from staff, or did you get a number as to how many units that would have compared to the 500 max that we're hearing would be in this RM2 designation?
Well, Councilor, I would defer to staff on that for those numbers. It was the sense of the neighbors that we wanted to come from a position of compromise on this from the very beginning, to make clear that we were not simply coming from a position of no multifamily whatsoever or no change whatsoever. We wanted to be having a posture of compromise from the outset. So we felt that that was a way that we could present a lower level of development that could perhaps work and still achieve, I think, the overall goals that the city is trying to accomplish with what's going on here, and the developer as well.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Can I jump in on that?
Who is it?
I do have some numbers.
Okay, Jamie, go ahead.
Okay. I'm actually I was looking up the max density for the zone right now, but I would like to add, and I think it's been addressed in the supplemental, that with the advent of the HB 2001 bill, the RM1 zone would essentially allow duplexes and triplexes on lot size of 5,000 square feet minimum. So you could potentially outright approve a triplex on each single family lot. And essentially that would, if there was 183 single family lots on the property, it could potentially do more than 500 units. So with the trip cap in place, it would actually be less.
Thank you. That's really helpful. Thank you. Any further questions for staff? Any of the folks you've heard from? Okay, I'm sorry, Trevor, go ahead.
Yeah, for staff, I'm still learning the process 1 year in, but tell me more about this trip cap. I think this is the first time we're having a land use decision, quasi judicial, where we're considering a trip cap. So can you give us the 1 minute background of what that is and how it works?
I might defer to traffic on this. I think that's more traffic related, but essentially it has a smaller net increase of the average daily trips by putting a trip cap on there. But I think Kevin is with us, and he might be able to explain it a little bit better.
Kevin Hopman.
Yes.
Hi, good evening, Mayor and City Councilors. Kevin Hopman, City Traffic Engineer. Trip cap is allowed in the transportation planning rule as a way to provide mitigation to lessen development to meet the goals of the TPR. So I believe the applicant was the one that had proposed to limit the housing to 500 to have the traffic generated fall within the TPR rules.
Okay. Councilor Anderson.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
If I could ask Kevin to follow up on that, could you describe what a trip cap is and how it works?
I'm sorry. Yeah, trip cap is basically with development, the zoning, a proposed zone change might allow a certain maximum density, and that could create a lot of mitigation responsibilities or impacts. And the applicant can then say, I don't want to go to full density on the property. I want to go to less because I can't either afford all of the mitigation or the impacts are too great. And so they can, or the city can require them to step down the amount of development. And the way to do that is to develop a trip cap, because then it allows the developer to pick the type of uses they want and add the traffic to it. And once they get to that level, then they can't develop anymore. So it doesn't say you can develop certain amount of housing, certain amount of retail. It just says these are the maximum amount of trips you can go, and then they can decide how they want to get there with the plans that they have for that land. Did that answer the question? I hope.
What do you think, Councilor Anderson? Did that answer the question?
Well, it answered a little bit of my question. And my original question was, how does the trip cap relate to the number of units? And I think, Kevin, I understand that now. You have the trip cap, and I presume there is some traffic study institute that says each unit produces an average of X number of trips per day. Is that right, Kevin?
That's correct. Single families, 9.5 about, and apartments is 6 something. Okay. And yeah, different developments develop certain amounts of traffic. Okay. And then that's how you reach that trip cap.
So, and this is probably back for the planning department, but right now, because of the stuff that you just talked about, Kevin, the maximum number of houses you can get is 500 when you're looking at the trip cap, and that ends up in the 2,400, whatever the 2,400 trips or whatever it is, the figure you have there. Is that correct?
Yeah, the apartments, if you 500 unit apartments generates the 2,200 trips. Yeah.
Okay. Now, what I am interested from the planning folks is, let's assume there wasn't a trip cap. How many units could be put in there?
The max density for the RM2 zone would be around 695 units.
Okay.
Without the cap.
So we've gone from almost 700 to 500. And then I guess this is back again for Kevin. Would there potentially ever be a time where the trip cap would actually force less than 500 units to be built, or is the 500 units how you get the trip cap?
The 500 units is how you get the trip cap. Okay. So it just depends by site and intersections and where they're at.
Sorry, are you finished?
Yes.
Okay. So if we were to say 450 units, then the trip cap will be reduced by 10%?
Yeah.
Approximately? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Well, the number of trips would be reduced. I think the cap is on the number of units.
Okay. Yeah. Sure. I got it. But if you cap the number of units, you're going to have statistically.
Then you're capping trips.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Hey, Councilor Stapleton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not sure who can answer this, but there seem to be a couple of times that we've seen in public comment on this that there is some discrepancy between the trips that are going to be created and what that kind of trips is going to do for some of the major streets there in West Salem. Can you speak to those public comment, different things, concerns that were brought up at all? Help me understand, because that made me a little concerned as to not fully understanding what is happening here.
Yeah. So the applicant provided a traffic study, and the traffic study followed city requirements. The intersections that were studied, some of the intersections are in the city of Salem and some of them are ODOT facilities. So ODOT controls Wallace Road. The intersections in the city of Salem all meet standards with this development. The issue is the intersections on Wallace Road at Glen Creek and Wallace Road at Orchard Heights. And the transportation planning rule says that, and ODOT says that if the amount of traffic generated by a development increases by 0.03 volume to capacity, then that's considered significant. And the traffic study provided by the applicant and agreed to by ODOT is that this development does not increase traffic on Wallace Road by 0.03. That the traffic that this develops in the future in 2035, because it's a zone change, they they study out 20 years or so. The growth and changes and all of the other uses that are happening throughout the Polk County will add traffic, but the mitigation responsibility on the applicant is based on the 0.03 increase in VRC that the site develops. They're not responsible for growth of other developments or other land that's happening in the area. And so that's why that's why staff has agreed with the traffic study and ODOT that there isn't a significant impact.
Okay, that's kind of clear as mud.
I'm sorry.
No, it's good. It's good, and I trust that you're bringing forward true and statements that are that all of the things you're saying are true. I'm trying to figure out why folks think that what you're saying is not true. Is there a part of this that is confusing to folks that they just don't understand, that we can help folks understand better so that we can, get beyond this point? I'm having a hard time asking the question because, right? Am I alone in this?
That's a good question.
Okay.
Yeah, the transportation planning rule is fairly complicated. It has some triggers on what it takes to meet it. It's based on the volume of traffic on the road. It's based on the development. And so it is fairly complicated, and there can be misinterpretations, I believe, in it. And ODOT is the one that manages Wallace Road. So, we look to them as well to see if they have concerns. And I believe they provided a response to the traffic study, and they supported the traffic study.
Okay.
But I'm not sure how to explain it without sitting down and kind of going through the language and what it means. I'm not really sure how to do that at this point.
But you've done that. You have done that at this point and you've come to the conclusion that this is correct. What you're saying is correct. Yeah. These numbers work.
Correct.
Okay. Councilor Hoy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a couple of different lines of question I want to pursue, and one is kind of following up on the ones we were just talking about. And so I just want to hear directly, Mr. Hopman. So is it your position basically that, Charlie Horse, is it your position that Mr. Anderson and Mr. Eastman are just mistaken in what they suggested to us, that you've looked at what they've had to say and that they're just misinterpreting the rules? Is that what you're saying? And is ODOT also saying that?
Well, I'm saying that, that myself and my coworkers and ODOT are interpreting the rules that the traffic study is correct in how they applied their analysis and what their results were. And therefore we agreed with the results of the traffic study. And yeah.
Okay, thank you. And just to follow up on the cap, or whatever the term was, I can't recall it off the top of my head, the traffic cap. What if, as I understand it, that's just sort of a formula based on the type of development, and so you come up with this sort of estimate. What if it's wrong? What if the trips that are generated by this development turn out to really be more than the cap?
Well, the traffic generation that the traffic engineer uses, it's based on the Institute of Transportation Engineers trip generation manual, and they've been developing multiple versions of this. So for housing, there are hundreds of studies that have been looked at on how much traffic is generated by different land uses. And it's a national kind of a standard. So, traffic engineers in Alaska and Florida all use this information as a means of of kind of getting general traffic. There might be a little bit of variation depending on services available and things like that, but generally the data is the best that's available. And in terms of the trip cap, the TPR says that if you generate more than 1,000 trips over what the land use was, that could trigger it. So with this trip cap, they're only generating 500. I'm sorry, I don't remember the number, but they're below that 1,000 increase. And the TPR also says that if your analysis shows that you're less than 0.03 increase in traffic capacity to an intersection, that you're also considered not a significant increase. So the applicant can choose a value of development or amount of development so that they fall below those thresholds. And that's what the applicant has done here.
Thank you. And so I guess the other question I have is, this is sort of this cumulative impact that we talk about all the time, and that we know that this developer isn't responsible for future development. But let's say the next development, let's say the neighbors develop their property and theirs also doesn't put it over that limit, but yet together they are. And together they're causing major traffic problems in that neighborhood. Then what?
Well, yeah, I think that's more legal on what's allowed for the government to mandate on mitigation. But generally, as development happens and these intersections get more congested, at some point, somebody will come in and have to improve it. So, but it has to be big enough to be significant. And that's what the law allows for the city to measure or to request mitigation on.
Okay, I think that's where neighbors get frustrated. I think that's where councilors get frustrated, because we end up in this sort of incremental thing, and ultimately nobody's responsible for improving it, but the cumulative impact of all of these things are impacting the neighborhoods. So
and part of it is the city has a system development charge, a transportation system development charge that everybody pays. So all of the traffic that this development generates, they will be paying a trip fee of $300 and some per trip that goes into a fund that then the city can use to try to help mitigate impacts that aren't specific to one development. So that's kind of the way that we are able to help address it. It may not be the full amount that we need, but it is something that we have.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that. And what if I could just do one more follow-up, Mr. Mayor? What about ODOT? So a lot of these intersections that we're talking about that are impacting ODOT facilities, they don't get to use our SDCs, do they? Or do they? So then how would they improve their intersections?
Well, they have safety money that they have available. They have a little bit more money than we do that comes through gas taxes. But yeah, they don't get system development charges. They have to fund them through their safety or improvement money. And I'm not really sure how that works.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Phillips.
Yeah, thank you, Kevin Hopman, for answering these questions. I'm asking probably similar, if not identical questions, just in my own words, so I'm sure that I understand it. How close were we to that threshold in this situation when we looked at some of those critical infrastructure intersections affected by this proposal in terms of the 0.3 or the 0.03 that you use as a threshold?
I don't remember how close they were, but it was, it's kind of, they have up to that point. So
even if it was really, really close, as long as it's on the correct side, equal to or less than that number, you're okay.
Yeah, that's what it's based on, the 0.03. So if they come in at 0.029, then they're still below the 0.03.
Okay. And that data would be interesting before I make a decision, but okay. And then I think it was in Mr. Anderson's, I don't know if you say the rebuttal or whatever period, but they were mentioning that the West Salem neighborhood now agrees that their recommendation of capping the trips at 1,000 is that's just not accurate. And even the neighborhood association agrees with that. I believe that this trip cap, which limits the site at 500 total units, gets us to 2,270. Did you see in the documents, did the West Salem Neighborhood Association ever get back to you with a number that they did agree was more realistic? Because they did agree that no, 1,000's not right. It should be higher. But I think they still think 2,270 is too much. So did you ever see or hear what that number was?
I have not. I know the 1,000 was a concern because that was actually a lower development than would be allowed if it wasn't even coming in for a zone change. So that's kind of why that was not, because if it just came as single family, they were going to generate more than 1,000. So I think everybody agreed that that wasn't appropriate, that we wouldn't even allow them
Fair.
to go.
No, that's what I think they accept that now as well, but they still find disagreement based on the criteria from their perspective. So I just wanted to get a sense if we knew what they now agree to as it written down.
I guess I would ask Jamie. Jamie might know because she just showed up. So.
I don't know what they agreed to or propose. I do know the existing zoning could generate 1,726 average daily trips
I saw that.
as the RA zoning. So.
Okay. And that, my back of the napkin is 25% less than the 22, something like that. Okay. Anyway, I guess my next questions are, do we as, quasi judicial, in our juror role, can we make additional modifications to this? Do we have the ability to do something like Councilor Anderson was proposing, which is within the criteria to propose a different, trip cap? Instead of using the 500 units, can we do slightly less? I guess that's a question for staff, is do we have that?
Mr. Atchison, do you have any thoughts on that?
I think that's a question for legal.
I was actually going to ask Kevin to address that before Councilor Phillips.
Or you do?
Question,
okay.
But the trip cap is based basically to get them below a significant effect.
Yeah.
According to the transportation planning rules. So we don't have if you're going to place a condition on a land use application, it's got to be there to allow an application to meet the criteria. In this case, the condition that staff is proposing allows them to meet that criteria in staff's understanding. So you don't really have arbitrary discretion to say, well, 2,200 trips is too much. We're going to say 1,800 or 1,910 or whatever the number Jamie quoted as being under the current zoning.
Okay. So what I'm hearing is a lack of that. We don't have discretionary power. That's not our role.
Not
in the sense that you can't arbitrarily set a different trip cap.
Okay.
Councilor Varney. There we go.
Now I got it figured out.
Oh, yes.
Sorry about that. Okay, Mr. Hopman, I'm a data analyst person, and so I'm always comparing tests, et cetera. My question is, in regards to some city intersections meeting the standards, but then there's some ODOT intersections that don't meet the standards with this. My question is, what are they using for reference? You mentioned that they refer to manuals and they're using the best available data, but are these reference manuals from the same time period? Are they comparable?
Yeah, the traffic study, what they do is they do counts at the time of before they submit the traffic study. And so they measure the traffic at the intersections. The intersections that are on Doaks Ferry at Glen Creek and Orchard Heights, which were the ones studied in my jurisdiction, were below the 0.9 that the city requires for capacity. It's 90% of capacity, basically. The intersections on Wallace that were studied are above that, but how it works is those are operating as they are and they're adding it on, and the added traffic that the development has to be less than 0.03. to be considered significant. So the applicant has shown that they are below that requirement. So, you know, staff then says, okay, they're following standards based on that data. The other studies that were looked at over the years, I mean, the requirement is each development does a traffic study. They use the data that they're required to do. Over years, traffic comes and goes. So it's not really, we don't say, oh, you have to use a study from 2001 or this study over here. They do a study of their own and do all the new traffic counts and look at the situations, crashes and current designs and stuff as they develop their traffic study. And then they provide that data into standardized modeling to determine what the capacities are of the intersections and what the impacts of the development are on those intersections and how they'll operate.
Okay, well, thank you. It seems like we're using different standards here, but that's not something we're evaluating tonight. It sounds like we need to do some work on how we actually evaluate traffic impacts down the road. But thank you for the explanation.
Yeah, I mean, we do a little bit different. I mean, the impacts are, and same for the city. I mean, if the intersections in the city were failing above 0.9, we would look at what impact, how much they were going to increase it. But ODOT has adopted through the transportation's planning rule that they don't consider anything less than they don't consider anything more than less than 0.03 as an impact. Right now, the city has a little bit different standard. As we say, if you're above 0.9 and you do anything and you're doing a zone change, you have to mitigate it back. But ODOT doesn't have that requirement. So there is a little bit of variations there.
Okay, thank you.
I'm going to quote you on that. Traffic comes and goes from now on. That's description of this tonight. Councilor Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This kind of reminds me of another development we had out in West Salem on the north end of Wallace Road. This incremental stuff, how much you get to the top of the glass of water before it spills over and who's responsible for it. And that's, to me, is just a problem that's built into the system the way we look at it. I've got two questions. The first one is, we hear the neighborhood group says, we came in, we want to compromise, we want to do something. I'm interested from the staff's point of view. Did the staff, is the staff attempting any compromise? Did the developer attempt any compromise, or is just this what they wanted to do all along? And then I have another question after that.
Yeah, I mean, if they meet the standards, staff can't say yes or no. I mean, I can't, if they fall below and we don't have a requirement, I can't say we'll do a little bit less.
Yeah.
So it's purely up to them.
Okay, so Kevin, thank you. That's very helpful. That was in, that's the same thing you said to Councilor Phillips and maybe Councilor Hoy in their questions. They meet the stuff, they're under the limit, they don't have to compromise because they're under the limit. If they were over the limit, they'd have to compromise. Okay, that's very helpful. Now, I just want to make sure that I understand that if it was just an RM1 single family development or a smaller development, it could generate, potentially have more units in it than the trip cap of 500 units. That's correct.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
And I did pull up the maximum density too. And so there's a lot of different numbers. So things like cottage clusters don't actually have a max density. Whereas something like single family would have up to 14 dwelling units max density. Okay. So it kind of varies.
Then this, I think, is for someone at the Community Development Department. How does this fit in? And I know it's in, the 3/4 of an inch material we have, but I just like to say this out loud in public. How does this proposed development fit in with our Salem and the planning documents that we have that are related to our Salem with the type of development that we're moving toward in this area?
I don't know that all the ins and outs of the our Salem. I might have Lisa jump in, but I do know I feel like the major goal is to meet the multifamily deficit. And you know, as of April 2021, there's been a net increase of roughly 40 acres of multifamily designated land, but it still leaves a deficit of 167 acres. So this could, you know, essentially provide 24 more acres towards meeting that goal. I know that there's rezoning across the city to try to provide more multifamily. So this is one of those instances.
And so it would be fair to say that we as the council have to look at the citywide goals for what we need for multi-unit density. It's kind of, we're back to the how high up does the glass of water get before it spills over, but we've got to look at the whole citywide, and there are only so many places that we can actually zone for multifamily density. Okay.
Lisa, did you want to step in on this at all?
I was going to, but Jamie did a great job on that answer.
Okay.
So I concur.
Very good. Okay, I think I don't see any more hands raised, so I'm going to go ahead. The applicant has a rebuttal time of 5 minutes. Councilor Hoy, could you take this? I'll try to get back, but could you also, if they get done with their 5 minutes, let's take a 5-minute break before we vote on this thing. Okay.
Got it. Yep.
Of being able to work on the project that Mr. Mayor was referring to on Park and D, called the Jory Apartments. And it's a really good example to kind of bring up for those who are not quite as familiar with, well, what does 500 units mean? I mean, what are we really talking about here? And so for those who are familiar with that project, on Park and D, that property is about 11.5 acres in size, the land that is zoned and being developed with multifamily. The property that's the multifamily portion of the subject property for this file is about 25 acres. And the Jory Apartments is 240 units. So it's actually a pretty good comp. And in that we have more than double the land in the Titan Hill project, and approximately half the units. So, and in that site, there's still plenty of land available for tree preservation. There's a multi-use path that's going through and providing pedestrian and bicycle connectivity on site on the Jory project. And, you know, we're not talking about skyscrapers. Those are 3-story multifamily units. And the reality is you know, it's just, you can provide a lot more efficiency and density through multifamily living than you can through single family residential. So, you know, we're not putting skyscrapers. It's not on that nature. It is something very similar to what is existing already in many portions of Salem that you would see. So we would still have to comply with all the city Salem design standards, which have been recently updated. They're much more easily to follow and have been codified now. And site plan review. So we're talking about a project that would be similar to what is seen in other areas of the community. Councilor Stapleton asked, you know, a deceptively difficult question of, you know, why are we confused? What's so confusing about the TSP? And as Kevin noted, it's just really difficult. And I think as I've tried to struggle to work with it over the years, a lot of tension and confusion is based upon the fact the language in the rule says, well, you cannot have a degradation from the standards. But when we're talking about state highway facilities in particular, there's many standards and many expressions of what those standards are. So it's very easy for neighborhood associations, real estate development professionals, city staff, and everybody to get a little bit confused when they're working through this and have to go ahead and double check the numbers. But the big point in contention in here is the neighborhood association is pointing to the V to C ratio, which is the volume to capacity ratio. That's the expression of kind of congestion going through the intersection. But that's only one of the types of performance standards that the Oregon Highway Plan has. And built into that is also this de minimis provision that they don't deem a significant effect if there's more than 0.003% of an increase, which I looked in the applicant's materials, and it's on page 10 of the applicant materials, which is in the record. And that during the PM hours is about 15 trips, just for context. So over the course of an hour in what we're talking about. So, you know, small numbers sometimes can lead to confusion in that, but I think the biggest confusion is when we're talking about standards, it's really easy to miss the mark or get confused about the language that we're using. What standards? Whose standards are we applying? And I think that's the source of the confusion between the parties in this case, and why we appreciate the work of ODOT and the city council staff in reviewing all of the transportation manuals. You do have credible evidence to rely upon. So those were the two big things that I thought I might be able to help. I see I've got 30 seconds rebuttal, so I'll just close by thanking you all, and we hope that you will approve the Planning Commission's decision.
Okay, thank you very much. Any thing else? I think what we'll do, I think if there's nothing else, I'm going to close the public hearing. And we'll come back in 5 minutes and we'll move forward on this and see where we are. Okay. So take a moment and we'll clear your head, think about all that you've heard, and we'll come back and take another run at this. Okay. Thank you. Looks like at least a quorum of us are back. Why don't we go ahead? The public hearing's closed. Who is going to make the motion on this? Councilor Hoy called up. Councilor Varney, are you going to make the motion?
I feel I probably should, since it's
Okay.
my ward.
Yeah.
Okay. I move that the council affirm the Planning Commission's decision for comprehensive plan map designation and zone change case, whatever it is, and approve the application.
Second.
Second by Stapleton. Would you like to speak, Councilor Varney, to your motion?
Oh boy. I don't blame people for being confused. This is really confusing, but we need more housing, and I'm not against multifamily. Boy, it's just really tough. Yeah, anyway, go ahead. I'd like to hear some other comments. I may have another comment in a minute.
Well, I'll thank you for that comment. I think you're right on the money. That is at the heart of this, is the need for more housing in the community. I think the confusion around the traffic is consistently the confusion we hear around traffic studies. There's nothing real new there. We probably ought to have Anderson and his committee who do SDCs also study traffic studies to see, so they can explain it to us in fairly simple terms. With that, I'll call on you, Councilor Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We only had about 38 meetings in 18 months to talk about SDCs, so I don't really have any in-depth understanding of them. You know, I'm going to vote for this, and I had some misgivings, but I was convinced by what Mr. Hopman and Mr. Atchison told us about. Here's what the criteria are, and they're underneath those criteria. I was especially impressed by the, if it was just a single family development, they could end up with more units and more, and thus I would say more traffic. The other thing I note in this one, it's a little different than, I'll just compare it to the Myers Farm, where we had other issues, or the Costco, where we had other issues that were related to trees or something else that wasn't just the criteria that are much more solid. We just look at them, they meet them or they don't meet them. So I think that's the way to look at the differences between these two projects. So I'm going to vote for it. And I also just want to say I appreciate the West Salem neighbors, their interest in this project and all other projects, and they're behaving like a neighborhood group should behave. And so I congratulate them for that.
Great. Councilor Hoy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I would just echo some of the comments. I'm going to support this. I wasn't sure coming into it based on what I read, but I feel like the professional staff has given us the information that this meets our criteria, meets their criteria, and I don't see any choice. We need the multifamily, and it meets the criteria. So I don't see a reason to not support it.
Thank you. Councilor Stapleton.
Thank you. Yeah, I join in with my fellow councilors. I think this is, it's really challenging for folks to try and understand these big things like this, that folks with years and years and years of experience, you know, it's just what they breathe. And so communicating with our general public is really challenging about issues like this. And it makes our residents, I think, really frustrated and feeling like they don't have a voice, that they're not being listened to, or that their concerns aren't being listened to, when something is this complex and really intricate, and you know, you need a degree to really understand what the heck is going on with some of these things. I know that from my conversations with folks, the term "no significant impacts" is really challenging for folks to hear, because you know, they're sitting in traffic right now and they feel like, you know, 2,000 and some odd trips or whatever it is. It feels like a lot to them. And so I just wanted to speak tonight to say that I do hear you and your concerns about this. And I have to trust in staff's expertise and trust that they are bringing all of their knowledge to the table and being honest with us. And we do need housing. And I think this is in the end going to be a really good development and really a wonderful place for folks to live. And it's a really unique section of town and beautiful. And I'm excited to see what happens in the future.
Councilor Phillips.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I guess my first comment would be a question. Are we able to ask staff questions if we still have them? Just so but my question would be is this near the core network? And then my second question would be, what will it be like for community members as this comes online? Like, how would Chariots connect to it? I know that Chariots spoke favorably of this, but like they wanted a bus stop near this area. So what is the expectation to when this actually goes forward and they build out to potentially 500 new multifamily units? How does the core network and the transportation system get connected to this with buses and so forth?
Mr. Atchison, help us out here. But
I want to provide one clarification, and I'll turn it over to Ms. Donaldson to give you actual factual information. But Councilor Anderson stated that compared the traffic being the same as, or single family traffic being greater than what the trip cap would be. I believe Ms. Donaldson said that was RM1 traffic would be higher than the trip cap, which is a higher zoning than single family. But
okay.
I stand corrected and I agree, Mr. Atchison.
Ms. Donaldson, can you answer Councilor Phillips?
Try my best. It is not within the core network, but Chariots has again provided comments and a map and located a location that would be best in their transit route for an existing route and within their standards of distance for their transit stops. I don't know if that exactly answers.
I think that's what there is. So thank you. It helps you kind of know what's coming forward. Okay.
Thank you. Councilor Leung.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think I might have missed this, but I wanted to verify for any of those housing units. And again, if we can't ask this question, let me know. Is any of it going to be earmarked for like affordable housing?
I think they said they don't know yet. That is not part of what they're doing at this point. But I think we'll get to hear about it again. Do I understand that right, Mr. Atchison? They could be back, or an administrative decision could be back in front of us that gives us an opportunity to go into the.
Right. Next steps might include a subdivision or a site plan review,
right.
Plan review for an apartment complex. That decision is normally administrative, but could potentially come to council.
Yeah. So there'll be an opening to find out. Okay. Good. Councilor Varney.
Thank you, Mayor Bennett. Just in reviewing everything, I mean, when there are really strong opinions on both sides of an issue, I feel it's especially important that we scrutinize the documents and the procedures and weigh the facts before we make a decision. I still have some really valid concerns about the standards. In the rebuttal, there was a comment about at the peak, we were 15 trips over the standard in an hour. There are just too many uncertainties. And because of that, I do not feel I can support this motion this evening.
Okay. All right. Okay, if they're recorded, please call a roll.
Councilor Nordyke. Aye. Councilor Barney.
Nay.
Councilor Stapleton.
Aye.
Councilor Anderson.
Aye.
Councilor Phillips.
Aye.
Councilor Leung.
Nay.
Councilor Gonzalez.
Aye.
Councilor Hoy.
Aye.
Mayor Bennett.
Aye. Okay, motion passes. Great, thank you very much. Okay, we'll move to special orders of business. 5A, Councilor Hoy, this is that waiver request.
And we need a motion to start the discussion, correct?
Yeah, do you want to make a motion to start the discussion?
Sure. I move City Council deny this request.
Second.
Second by Stapleton.
Yeah, I had to pick one side or the other, and we just developed a policy. The staff applied the policy. I thought the whole point was so that we wouldn't have to be considering these. And I would like to hear from staff a little bit on why we are hearing this. And so we can get it out kind of on the record. But I'm a little bit frustrated with this one since I thought we just developed a policy to not be in this situation.
Mr. Mayor, I think I can speak to that.
Thank you, Dan.
Well, the policy is designed for city council to make the decision because we've been getting ad hoc waiver requests brought by individual councilors. So staff, when they got the request pursuant to the policy, sent it to council for decision. If we want to have a different policy that allows staff to make these decisions, we can work on that.
I wonder, is that kind of what you're asking, Councilor Hoy, is that your expectation was this was an administrative process that may come to us on special occasions, not on all occasions? Is that?
Yes.
Okay. I wonder if that's where you may want to take another look at that policy. We adopted that, correct? And the first thing we did, I think it was Councilor Nordyke's motion on an indigenous peoples group that wanted it was a different kind of thing though. It was looking back saying, please don't charge us for last year.
Right.
Yeah, a little different than this one. This is more prospective.
Right. As I recall that discussion, that was a one-off. We're kind of cleaning up some old business that happened prior to the adoption of the policy. And now I guess we didn't actually develop a policy that I thought we did.
Yeah, I hear you. So where are we? Will we see every one of these now as these issues come forward? How will this work right now?
Pursuant to the policy, yes, these decisions would come to council, and Robert Chandler, Assistant Public Works Director, might be able to speak to other types of waivers that are available, through the existing Public Works Administrative rules.
But okay, Robert, will these routinely come to council, all waiver requests?
Yes, Robert Chandler, Assistant Public Works Director, Mr. Mayor, City Councilor. As the city policy, council policy is written, yes. As the staff report does say, we can't really determine the degree to which a particular organizer is going to face financial hardships, for example. Not something we can do. This is the third time a request like this has come before council recently. There was also the Capital Pride event that was last year. And then this was from an October event from Indigenous People Now. And both those times council, I think, looked backwards toward the event, or nearly so. I think Capital Pride was quite close to the event itself.
Yeah.
But but as council policy is written, yes. And our policy in Public Works has been to not allow any waivers of this nature because it kind of opens the floodgates.
If we stay the way we are, or we change it rather, and you all can deny waivers, presumably you can deny waivers now if you want, but won't they come to council anyway? They'll just find an individual counselor that wants to bring their case to the council.
Our policy has been this Public Works policy has been, if you want a waiver, that can only be granted by council because council is the body that approved the fee schedule. So what we are doing new, coming up the new fee schedule, is we're going to propose for council a 20% fee reduction in the facility use fee for a qualifying nonprofit organization, trying to give some acknowledgement of the struggles that nonprofit organizations have had compared to for-profit. There's still trade-offs with that, but we're looking to have a 20% fee reduction for nonprofit organizations in the future.
So you're going to bring us amendments to this policy when?
It's not an amendment to the policy, Mr. Mayor. It is a change, an update to the fee schedules. It comes to council every year.
Will it be coming back to council?
The fee schedule will be, yes. I think it's timed loosely with the budget process.
Is the fee schedule tied to the waiver policy, or is that a separate?
Separate, absolutely separate. We will, if council approves the fee reduction, a 20% fee reduction for a nonprofit organization on the facility use fee, it'll be applied automatically here and you'll never see it. That's for nonprofits.
Okay. Who am I looking for here? Councilor Stapleton, there you are.
Thank you. I'm a little confused from I forget his name, the gentleman who spoke in public comment about this. They had said that they in the past have used city facilities and have not been charged. And I just want to, was that ever something that came before council, or was that something, is that, I'm trying to figure that out. Is that the truth? Have they had every summer used city facilities for no charge?
Absolutely.
Peter, do you want to?
Yeah, I'm sorry, my screen went blank, but if you can still hear me, I'll speak. All of it.
You're there, Peter.
So from experience, I know that Children's Educational Theater had used Loucks Auditorium for a number of years. That's not a public works facility, so I really cannot speak to whether they were charged or not. Mr. Salzberg said that they were not charged for that use, but that was the facility they were using. I know they also performed at the Salem Art Festival as part of their events, but I believe this is the first time that they're making a request to use a parks facility and to have that be a fee waiver for it.
Okay, thanks. That helps. And I do appreciate your emails. I asked this question before the meeting and hadn't gotten an answer yet. So I'm trying to get that answer here. And Peter, thanks for helping me try and get that answer earlier.
Councilor Varney, you were involved in this policy development on SPRAB. What do you all think was going to happen here? Did you have an expectation? Involved in it?
I was not on the Parks and Permitting subcommittee
okay.
Specifically, but I obviously heard after the results of the committee. So I don't know exactly what the discussion was. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've got a question, I think, for the city attorney. I'm looking at page 2, number 3 of the agenda item 5A, where you've got 4 guidelines. I guess my question is, do all of those guidelines have to be met, or if we say enough of them are met, we can approve the waiver, or do they have to meet every single one of them?
That's sort of up to council interpretation. It was drafted to give you flexibility, to give council flexibility to determine if they meet one guideline extremely well and one guideline less well, you would still have the discretion to grant a fee waiver.
Yeah, that's a legal test that I understand, Mr. Atchison. You can weigh one more than the other. And I'm just looking at this and I'm convinced that they meet number 1, a locally based recognized nonprofit with its principal location in Salem. I'm convinced that the event is consistent with and advances the city policy adopted goal. And I'm sure that the waiver of the fee will not cause city difficulty in providing the service. I mean, because the memo says that it's not going to provide city difficulty. The only issue I have is there a need for a waiver? Have they demonstrated a need for this amount to be waived? And I just want to make it sure it's $1,100. That's the waiver we're looking at. That's the amount of the waiver we're looking at.
Actually, if I may, Mr. Mayor and Councilor Anderson, the only fee that can be waived is the facility use fee, which in this case in the staff for $876.
Okay, now I see it.
It's fair enough, Mayor. We had quoted a total cost to Children's Educational Theater around $1,000. That's the number they put in, but only the facility use fee is what can be.
So we're now talking about $876 is the waiver they are seeking from us. And I'm recalling Councilor Stapleton asked a bunch of questions about, maybe it was Councilor Leong, or maybe both of them. How do you deal with folks who can't afford your services? And their answer was, we've got money for that. So, 876 is not a whole lot of money for a group that size, I would guess. So I don't think they meet 3, but I think they meet the 1, 2, and 4. And so, I'm going to have to weigh that as how I vote. Thanks.
Okay, Councilor Phillips.
Yeah, I mean, okay, let me lower my hand. All right, thank you, Mayor Bennett. And I think that my frustration with this is similar to some of the other councilors who've spoken, which is that I had the understanding that we had created policy that would prevent the need for us to make a decision on each and every case. But now that I understand staff's interpretation of what we've already done, I mean, I'm not opposed to that. I didn't know it before this motion came before us. So I want to get that on the record that my frustration isn't directed at CET. It's just, I guess it's my own lack of understanding. I thought that, the staff would be able to make the decisions without coming to council. I agree with Councilor Anderson that conditions 1, 2, and 4 have been met. I feel that as a nonprofit, everybody's struggling for money, so they may meet number 3. But, after our small group meeting with the budget breakout kind of prep work, I mean, what we're looking at in 2 years is a, $18 million, deficit in funding operations. So, I think $876 for a worthwhile cause, but I think CET probably is okay. But if we get a lot of these, eventually it's going to be a hardship for the city. So yeah, it's, again, I guess at a future point, we should discuss, like, do we really want to be weighing in on every single one of these, during a city council meeting? So those are my thoughts. I'll probably be voting in favor of the waiver in this case, but yeah. Okay, thanks.
Councilor Leong.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll just put my hand down on the raise hand function. So my main concern, and it's just more of a question, I guess, at this point, or just more of a commentary. For folks who might not know, I run a nonprofit and we have very tight budgets. So for a nonprofit that's wanting to come and asking for, a request specifically to help reduce some of their costs, and look at the past 2 years, we've dealt with, lack of a better word, ton of issues that came as a result of COVID. And we've also seen specifically within their application what they've gone through, in terms of, I see Councilor Hoy just laughing away. Anyways, where I'm coming with this from is just, we're seeing nonprofits that are finally, hopefully, starting to bounce back, whatever that new bounce back looks like. And, this is an organization that has done so much good service for our community. And for me, it's important that we continue to support them. We've seen them at the library, we've seen them at the art festival, we've seen them at other community events and opportunities. So I'm going to be voting in favor of this waiver.
Okay. Councilor Nordyke.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And first of all, colleagues, I appreciate the conversation. The policy is supposed to establish a formal and objective process so that anyone who brings forward a fee waiver request goes through the exact same analysis. And this is being taken directly out of the policy itself. The goal is to do this and to avoid an ad hoc determination. I agree that we need this policy, and I'm not actually hearing an objection to the idea of having factors, objective criteria, having a set methodology that everyone is subject to. I'm not hearing disagreement on that point. What I am hearing more concern about is, does council have to make the call every single time? I think we need to maintain objective criteria. We need to have a process that is fair and equitable and the same for everyone, because with or without this policy, Councilor Varney, Councilor Anderson, Councilor Leung, someone is going to get approached with a fee waiver request. So a couple suggestions I might have for this. One would be we could amend the policy to say perhaps let the city staff make the first decision and the applicant can appeal it to council. We already follow that process in other categories. Maybe we could do something like that. Obviously, I would defer to the city attorney on whether we can legally do that, but we already have situations where people come to council as the last stop, their appellate court, if you will. That might cut down on things. And we can call for strict adherence to this policy in order to address the fiscal concerns that Councilor Phillips raised. So those would be the suggestions that I raise. This applicant, of course, looked at the policy, worked with city staff, didn't know they'd be walking into this kind of conversation tonight. And I think that they've met the factors in my view. So I intend to support this fee waiver request, but perhaps this is an opportunity for us to consider amending it to address the concerns that our colleagues have raised.
Councilor Hoy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple of thoughts. I agree pretty much with everything Councilor Nordyke just said. I like the idea of, I thought that was the deal. The staff was going to give it the first look and we would deal with any issues beyond that. I guess, and this has not, any of the conversation I've had so far on this motion has nothing to do with CET. I think they're a great organization. I support them completely. This isn't about them in any way. And I guess to my point, if we're going to waive this, and that's, it's fine if we do. I mean, you know, I'm not going to, this is not a hill I'm ready to die on, but why don't we just waive it for every nonprofit then? Because you could come in here and make that kind of argument that they do good work. I mean, they're a nonprofit, you know, they do good work for the community, and why put them through this whole thing? And if we're just ultimately going to waive them anyway, because we've never denied one, and you know, what's the point? So I guess I just toss that out as another point of consideration, but I do want to reiterate what Councilor Phillips said is we're in the middle of a budget crisis and parks work on fees. And so it does actually fund parks operations when we take in these fees. And so that's why my motion was to deny it. If the will of the group is to allow the waiver, we're going to need a substitute motion. So I just tossed that out there, and I'm fine with that if that's the case.
Councilor Stapleton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I agree with everything that everybody has said. This is an organization that I know a lot of people send their kids to and have found really great value in. And I know that it is an asset to the community. My only wish would be that it was spread out more equitably across the community. You know, this is a program that really focuses and gets their main support from and attendance from the South Salem area. And I know that the biggest stumbling block is the financial hurdles to get there, and the huge commitment that's asked of parents to participate in the program. So if you can have a nonprofit that has a single night event for fundraising and they can raise $17,000, you know, I struggle with the ask for $800 because of our budget issues. And so that's kind of where I'm at. I'm also with Chris Hoy. This is not a hill I want to die on either. I think it has brought to light a lot of the struggles that the council has with this type of thing, and the ways in which we're trying to get it so that we don't have to, you know, get into the weeds in this kind of thing every single time. So that's how I'm feeling right now. Thanks.
Councilor Phillips.
I'd like to make a substitute motion to waive the $876 fee facility use fee that we're allowed to waive.
Second.
Second by LeYoung. And I think to speak towards my substitute motion, it's already been discussed at length. I think that we've had mostly a chance to get our thoughts heard. I hope that staff and we can think about how to move forward after tonight's vote. But I think that this is maybe the most debated $876 the city has ever spent. So yeah, it's going to be an easy yes vote on this new substitute motion.
It's not the most. Wait till you get to the top board will be the one.
I got an email about that earlier today.
That is a nightmare. That's all the $876 grants.
Okay.
All the little nonprofits. So get ready.
In my short term, in my short tenure.
In your short term.
Yeah.
Do you want to, I want you to think about your motion. Would you like to take another look at your motion to, is there a critical time period that this has to be decided tonight? I'm just wondering if there is a need for the staff to take another look at this group to make sure that all the questions are answered, or incorporate into your motion some way in conjunction with Mr. Atchison, some way to get this away from the city council as far as possible, that you really are just a place you come for
I may have, like, for the sake of conversation, Mayor Bennett, I may have erred on simplicity. I was just trying to clear the motion that was originally brought up. If there's,
I understand, and
yeah.
I don't have any problem with the motion. I just wondered if you wanted to go deeper into this.
Yeah.
I don't know that time's critical in this thing, but I understand what you're saying. Atchison.
Thank you, Mayor. If it's the will of council, I think we've heard your message on the procedure here loud and clear, and I think we can go back and take a look and provide a recommendation.
Very good. Okay, we have motion on the floor. Anyone want to discuss the motion?
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah.
are we still, I want to make sure I understand, we're still voting through this motion whether or not to approve the fee waiver.
We're directly voting to approve the fee waiver.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
Okay, to me, because there's separate issues between voting whether or not to approve and directing staff to perhaps consider an amendment of policy.
Staff's going to do that anyway. So
Great.
we'll take care of that.
Just wanna make sure.
Okay. Okay. Hey, if sorry, Tom.
Yeah. This is a phrase that the lawyers will understand. It's called the floodgates argument. And, you know, you open it up to one, pretty soon it's more and more and more. And I think you were talking about that, Mr. Mayor. So I don't know, but this is in front of us now. I mean, so that's what my concern about. Is there a time issue? And is there, and I guess I'm looking at the city attorney, could, you know, there's a possibility, I would say, of a motion to table and come back with a little bit more information. Specifically, is this number 3? Is it an undue hardship for this particular group? And how could the staff propose we make sort of the changes that we've been talking about? Maybe that could all come back if we move to table. And as I understand it, parliamentary, if we move to table it, it will be heard at the next meeting. I don't know. So I don't know if Mr. Atchison needs to respond to that in any way.
I guess, yeah, like, could I,
Yeah.
why don't you answer Tom's question, but then I have a question too.
Okay. Mr. Atchison, you
I
want
think
to go ahead?
the answer is yes. Yes, you can make a motion to table, and yes, we can bring it back at a future meeting. We'd prefer that you tell us what date or what meeting you'd like it to come back to. I would let Robert speak to any potential additional information we could add to the process.
Well, I'm just going to add, there's no urgency to this aside from the peace of mind of Children's Educational Theater and their budget.
Okay.
Their event is scheduled for July 18th through 2020 in 2022. So it's late July. And council has in the past waived a fee. Well, the Indigenous Peoples Now fee was waived several months after the actual event. So there's no temporal urgency on this thing. But we can go back and look at the policy.
Is there interest in sort of tabling this, pulling it off the decks for tonight, have the staff take a look at it, and we take a look at bringing it back later with, you know, kind of fulfilling, I think, Councilor Phillips' ultimate proposal, which is give them the break, but also to get a little further analysis and look at whether or not there's some other factors that we would like to include in a motion that kind of cleans this whole thing up a little bit. Oh, don't get excited. Yeah, Tom, Chris.
Mr. Mayor, I would propose we just vote on this thing tonight, clear the deck with it, and let staff go do their thing on policy. We'll deal with that whenever they're ready for us to deal with it. I don't think that there's anything substantive that's going to change the will of the council in terms of waiving this $850. We've already spent more than that talking about it. So to me, let's just waive it, move on, and
you're getting paid more than I am if we just spend that money.
It's Atchison, it's not me.
Oh, it's Atchison. Okay.
Please tell me he's overtime exempt employee.
Okay, let's have the recorder call a roll.
Councilor Varney.
Aye.
Councilor Stapleton.
Nay.
Councilor Anderson.
Aye.
Councilor Phillips.
Aye.
Councilor Leung.
Aye.
Councilor Gonzalez.
Aye.
Councilor Hoy.
Aye.
Councilor Nordyke.
Aye.
Mayor Bennett.
Aye. Okay, everybody's comfortable with where they're voting. Motion passes. Okay. What's next? Nordyke, how much do you want to spend? You're up.
All right, thank you. One moment, please. I'm just switching screens here.
And this is your motion to direct staff to explore creation of an RF.
Right, agenda 5 item B, correct.
Okay.
1 moment. Sorry. I move that council directs staff to explore the creation of a request for proposals to operate a mobile crisis unit.
Second.
Who seconded? Hoy, okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Every city needs police, fire, and mental health first responders. Mobile crisis units can provide that third critical piece to public safety. Cities across America are reporting the cost savings and lives changed from mobile crisis units, and it's high time that the capital of Oregon joins them. I may be the most vocal supporter on this issue, but I'm not the only supporter. I could not do this without support of my peers on council. And other supporters who've spoken up over the past year make up a diverse coalition of local business owners, medical professionals, parents, mental health professionals, homeless advocates, and more. For years, if not decades, the city of Eugene has contracted with one of their local community partners, Whitebird Clinic, to provide the mobile crisis unit that has become the national model known as Cahoots. With our city staff spread thin, we should follow Eugene's time-tested model by contracting with community partners here to operate a mobile crisis unit. I've met with many of these partners over my 2 years on council. These are the boots on the ground that do the relationship building needed to run a crisis unit. Many already provide mental, medical, and/or case management services to some of our most vulnerable residents, but many more need our help. And the city can leverage the expertise and infrastructure from our partners to serve more men, women, and children in crisis. So now that we've had time to digest the city staff report, I want to take the next step towards making a mobile crisis unit reality. This motion is intended to direct city staff to develop a request for qualifications and ultimately a request for proposals to operate our very first mobile crisis unit. A request for qualifications and other exploratory efforts is intended to help the city identify the known universe of potential community partners. And if this motion passes, I really want to encourage staff to think outside the box as we consider potential partners and potential funding sources from the public and private sectors. We also need to encourage looking into every possibility, every opportunity to seek Medicaid reimbursement and other forms of reimbursement that are increasingly becoming available for mental health services. And I encourage staff to cast a broad net and encourage a wide variety of community partners to engage in this process and put forth their names for consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Hoy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And thank you, Councilor Nordyke, for bringing this forward. I am supportive of exploring an RFQ, which I think will really help us take, it seems like we vote on this thing about once every couple of months. But what this is going to do is it's going to take all of these sort of vague bits of information and really tell us what's available in the community, who has the capacity to deliver such a program, and what is it really going to cost in our community to deliver. And I think that this RFQ will do exactly that. And then we'll really know what we're looking at. We'll know, do we have a nonprofit that's available? Do we have more than one that might be interested in this? I hope we do. And then how much might it cost? And then this council can make a decision. Are we ready to make that investment? So far, we've invested $135,000, or we have it available for investment, but we haven't invested beyond that or committed beyond that. And this will give us the opportunity to understand what more might be required and what more might be required of community partners. So I think this is a great step to really sort of bring this all together and present us with a package that we'll be able to consider, and that we'll kind of be done with some of the vagueness of, oh, this nonprofit might be ready, this nonprofit might not be ready. This will really help us to know what we're facing. And I think this is the right way to do it.
Yeah. Councilor Stapleton.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree 100% with Councilor Hoy. I feel like this is such a great step. It feels like we're taking an action, and that feels really good, a step in the right direction. I also wanted to thank Councilor Nordyke. All of us really have our own things that we're working on and that we champion, and we cannot know everything about everything or spearhead all of the different work that's happening around the city. But we as a council are a team, and I see Councilor Nordyke really, going out after this and really spearheading this motion. And I am proud to sit here at this council and come beside her and support her in this way as she makes really positive movement in this direction that we all want to go. So thank you, Councilor Nordyke, for bringing this forward. And I look forward to voting for this and seeing what the community has to offer and how we can all work together to really make this happen.
Manager Rutherford.
Yes, I just would like to make a couple of clarifications for staff to give them appropriate direction. First, I want to confirm that the definition of mobile crisis response team is what was included in the last report, so that we're looking at a basic health triage response team with a mental health component. So I just want to verify that and make sure that we're asking for the right thing. And then also that in exploring this and issuing the RFQ, that we will cast that broad net, and we will ask respondents to respond with their interest, their qualifications, along with a budget estimate for their first year of operations. Once we've received that information back with the RFQ, before we issue an RFP, then we would return to council with that information, and budgetary action would have to be taken before we proceed with an RFP, if that's the decision.
Is that, Councilor Nordyke, does that sound?
I believe it does, Mr. Mayor. The one thing I want to make sure we're on the same page about is that we already have a police-led crisis unit, behavioral health unit. This is not that. This is a civilian-based unit with mental and medical capability. And we know from the prior staff report, that might mean peer support specialists, it might mean a QMHP, it might mean an RN. There are a lot of different professionals out there, but I want to make sure we understand this is in addition to the police-led unit under SPD BHU.
Yes, understood.
Thank you.
Is there a standard descriptor out there, Vanessa, that sort of says, here's what this looks like, or, here's how this is staffed, or is there anything like that that would be supplied to Kristen and her staff?
Sure. That's a great question, Mr. Mayor. Well, actually, there's a mobile crisis intervention team that is defined in House Bill 2417. Which I had mentioned beforehand. So we could use that as a starting point. But as we know from the last staff report, there are lots of different types of professionals. So I would think, I want us to be flexible. I know our community partners, they're the boots on the ground. They can tell you, well, here's what a peer support specialist can do. Here's what a prescriber can do. And we all know someone with prescribing privileges will cost a lot more money than someone who can do more of the social work, come alongside, say that I've been there and I've been in your shoes. So we're going to see a big swing in price points depending on the kind of staff we have. So I wouldn't want to be so granular in detail that we say we only want this particular type of position, licensing, credentialing. I think that's where having a collaborative and exploratory conversation through the RFQ and later the RFP process makes sense.
Would the RFQ also include some sort of capital investment? I mean, you must have a van, or you must have some sort of.
We'll be asking them to provide a full cost estimate to operate the service, which would include nuts and bolts from their staff.
You'll have all the pieces. Okay.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Councilor Phillips.
Thank you, Mayor Bennett, and thank you, Councilor Nordyke, for the motion. In spirit, I 100% back, the taking the next step towards eventually recruiting and getting a civilian-led mobile crisis response unit. That being said, I just want to make sure that, we do have our language tightened up as much as possible. I know that there was a substitute motion last time when we got the information that city staff got back to us to look at also, the potential of adding funding or expanding the hours of service for the sworn officer involved mobile crisis response unit that already exists. I think that may at this point be just a separate motion, but I guess my question to staff is, for those of us who do think that that is a separate, there is a need to expand those hours, in my opinion, and that was a prior motion that has been brought before us. And I guess my fear is that when we do this, we'll kind of lose sight of that as well. So it gets so confusing because they have the same name. The Marion County Mobile Crisis Response Unit, the one that we currently have, is the one that has a sworn officer. So I don't know if city staff can speak to that, but just help me understand what's the next step for learning more about expanding the hours for the officer involved mobile crisis response unit that already exists.
Before I respond, I just saw Councilor Nordyke raise her hand. Did you want to speak to that, Councilor?
Yes, I just want to say that's not in the motion before you tonight.
Okay.
I think that we will have budget talks where we can talk about how much to invest in our BHU and other services, but that's not a part of tonight's motion.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Rutherford, did you need to talk about that?
I think that answered it. Yes, we're focusing on a nonprofit, a civilian led
nonprofit, civilian led and operated program, front end, back end of it. That's how I understood it. Okay. Councilor Hoy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And just to kind of speak to Councilor Phillips' concern, I think that amendment to that previous motion provided some background information that some counselor might choose to bring forward into a budget discussion. You might somebody might make a motion at the budget committee about expanding that program if that's what they saw fit. Or it might give you just background information so we can compare that to whatever information we find out from this motion, they're two very different things, but I think it's just a point of reference so you can understand fully what we have available, what it would cost to expand what we already have, what it would cost to stand up this new program, and then we can make decisions based on having that variety of information. But this has nothing to do with that.
Okay. Councilor Leung.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this is more of a broader question. You mentioned that it has to be at least one nonprofit, but is there a limit in terms of total number of nonprofits that could be potentially awarded? And if not, is there a minimum amount that each organization could potentially get?
I don't think we can speak to that yet. The request for qualifications would allow, I think, nonprofits to partner in operating something like this. So we're by doing the request for qualifications, we're going to allow them a great deal of flexibility to organize this and structure it as in the way they think it would operate the best and the most efficiently, then provide us with what their cost needs are. And then at that point, it would become a council decision as to whether or not you wanted to award it to one organization or another organization through an RFP process. You know, if we wanted to go after multiple providers or one provider and the associated budget to pay for those services.
Thank you.
Any further discussion on this motion? Yes, Councilor Varney.
I wanted to say thank you, Councilor Nordyke, for bringing this forward. I've heard a lot about it, but I haven't had an opportunity to read in detail the previous staff report. But I support this because it's an exploratory thing and we'll get lots of information and be able to see what some of the options are.
Okay, that's good. Anyone else? Okay, if the recorder would please call the roll. This is to approve Councilor Nordyke's motion. Sorry, I was going to go back to children's education there for a minute.
Thank you. Councilor Stapleton.
Aye.
Councilor Anderson.
Aye.
Councilor Phillips.
Aye.
Councilor Leung.
Aye.
Councilor Gonzalez.
Aye.
Councilor Hoy.
Aye.
Councilor Nordyke.
Aye.
Councilor Varney.
Aye.
Mayor Bennett.
Aye. Okay, motion passes. Okay, what do we got left? Just a sec here, sorry. Okay, we have information reports. Everybody well informed? Okay. Nothing there. Okay, we'll go to first reading.
Ordinance bill number 422, an ordinance declaring certain territory located at 2490 Michigan Lane Northwest, annexed to the city of Salem, prescribing zoning and withdrawing the territory from the Spring Valley Rural Fire Protection District.
Councilor Varney. This is your motion if you'd like to make it.
Okay, I move that we advance ordinance bill number 4-22 approving this annexation.
Second.
Second by Hoy. Any discussion? Okay. The recorder, please call a roll.
Councilor Anderson.
Aye.
Councilor Phillips.
Aye.
Councilor Leung.
Aye.
Councilor Gonzalez.
Aye.
Councilor Hoy.
Aye.
Councilor Nordyke.
Aye.
Councilor Varney.
Aye.
Councilor Stapleton.
Aye.
Mayor Bennett.
Aye. Okay, motion passes. Next one.
Okay, ordinance bill number 522, an ordinance declaring certain territory located at 4255 Cordon Road Northeast, annexed to the city of Salem, prescribing zoning and withdrawing the territory from the Marion County Fire District number 1.
Councilor Gonzalez, a motion on this one.
I move staff recommendation.
Okay.
Second.
Second by Hoy. Any discussion? Okay, if you'd call the roll.
Councilor Phillips.
Aye.
Councilor Leung.
Aye.
Councilor Gonzalez.
Aye.
Councilor Hoy.
Aye.
Councilor Nordyke.
Aye.
Councilor Varney.
Aye.
Councilor Stapleton.
Aye.
Councilor Anderson.
Aye.
Mayor Bennett.
Aye. Okay, motion passes. I don't see any further business. We are adjourned.
For more videos and for more information, go to capitalcommunitymedia.org and follow us on social media.